For the upcoming right-hander, brake 30 meters later and ease off the pressure.
Are you spending a lot of time looking for setups and struggling for faster lap times? Are you tired of searching online for answers? Would you like to get setups, analysis and tutorials from some of the best sim racers in the world like Ralph Alla, Mitchell de Jong, Martin Krunker, Josh Rogers and many more? If so, virtualracingschool.com is the answer you've been looking for. VRS data packs provide hot laps from our professional coaches for you to analyse and replicate. They provide tutorials that walk you through the fastest laps and what the pros did to achieve the best times. And they provide the setups you need to ensure your car is competitive in both oval and road racing. If you're ready to get faster and reach more podiums sooner than later, just go to virtualracingschool.com and sign up for a free account today.
Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another round of rapid fire racing action in the Evolution Sim Racing GT3 Championship Season 8 as brought to you on the Premier Sim Racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing, and this series powered by Trophy AI. We're here today for round 4 of 10 and we have made our way to the United States of America for the one and only classic Wisconsin State, countryside circuit, and that is Road America. A circuit opened in 1955. It is one of the oldest circuits in the United States of America, indeed one of the oldest in the world, and uncommonly compared to most circuits of its generation that evolved over the time, this circuit has retained its 4.04 mile layout that has been with it ever since the day it's opened, and arguably it provides the premier spectator experience. With no grandstand capacities and indeed no limits to spectators, this is the circuit where you turn up, park up and overlook the circuit from the many banks that sit around it. And indeed, for you guys and girls tuning at home, you're in for a spectacle today as our drivers get ready to go racing for what will be our feature race round. 60 minutes of racing action lies ahead at a circuit where it's all about being smart with the draft and also being ready to make a key play on strategy, because whilst overtaking is highly possible around here with a circuit featuring many an extended straight and a number of tight technical corner sequences, it also sees battling cost a lot of time, and sometimes it's better to be smart on strategy rather than battle out on circuit. But who will have the smarts out on circuit? Who will have the smarts in the pits? All that and more we're going to understand and see where it leaves us on the score as we leave from here today and make our way into round number 5 in a week's time. But indeed, this could be a pivotal round in our Premier and Evo classes. For we welcome you to this live broadcast from Circuit Side, available only on the Evolution Sim Racing YouTube channel. Indeed, go to youtube.com and search our Evolution Sim Racing or ESR, and we welcome you guys and girls that tuning in on YouTube, including and not limited to, of course, always Katie Kitty Eames, who is all good, and glad to hear that, Katie, and looking forward to another exciting evening of racing and cheering on the Runner Academy drivers. And also we do have Billy Wright there, who'll be cheering on Crofty, known as Mathew Croft, and looking forward to seeing how he gets on. And if you are tuning in right now and you haven't said hi, don't be shy, feel free to say hi. We don't bite here, and you're tuning in, of course, to Split B, because we have 2 splits ongoing at the same time, and we are covering what is the Premier and Evo classes, our 2 lower classes in terms of the I ratings of our drivers, but they're no lower in terms of the frantic action, in terms of the quantity of drivers, nor the quality of the racing. And we've seen some absolutely top-notch quality racing so far over the course of our opening 3 rounds, and we've got a long way to go here as we roar our way into this round. But to give you a recap then of how far we've come and what we still got lying in wait, because we've got a long journey ahead of us. And as we can see, we're now on to the 24th of April, and it's round number 4 at Road America. Last time out, it was 2 fast and furious sprint races and the Mugello Grand Prix circuit in Italy. And there we got to see in what stable conditions an absolute change of circumstances across our 2 classes. Because on the 17th of April in round number 3, we got to see in the Premier class was an absolute mix-up in the race, and with Peter Duke finally taking to lead the championship standings, something he's been chasing ever since the season opener, and particularly since the pre-season event at what was the Red Bull Ring Grand Prix circuit, where we saw him absolutely dominate the way, but it wasn't to be in the opening 2 rounds, but he's finally found his way to the top, albeit along the way we got to see some brilliant battles, and particularly in that second race of the day, we got to see what was a 1-2 for Jim Fox and his teammate Robin Aston for Suma GP2, where in the end it was all about Aston having to act as the the rear gunner as Fox tried to break away. Meanwhile, it was all change as well in what was the Evo class, where we got to see double victory for Grant Miller, finally breaking the stranglehold that his rival Wesley Van Rens has had over victory so far this season. And we also got to see Edel Chowdhury rise up through the ranks. But heading into Road America, could it be more of the same today, or could it be different? I suspect it's the latter rather than former. And after today, of course, for round number 5 to wrap up the first half of the season, we'll be making our way to the US state of Texas for the Circuit of the Americas and the Grand Prix circuit of sunny skies once again on the 1st of May. But to get there, we've got to go through mixed conditions today here at Road America. And well, those mixed conditions, they could prove troublesome in the race, but more on that in due course. But of course, we've got plenty more rounds coming after those, including the second half of the season. Round number 6 at Road Atlanta, round number 7 at Le Mans, Sebring International for round 8, Imola for round number 9, and we wrap things up at Monza's Grand Prix circuit in round 10 of 10. But not dwelling on the calendar then, let's dwell on the standings as we come into round number 4. And start off with the Premier standings here. And as we can see in our top of our 2 classes in Split B, as we mentioned only moments ago, Peter Duke has moved to the top for DDK Racing Team P. And well, his consistency has absolutely been clinical in enabling him to get to 205 points. With what is no lower than a 6th place finish, 2 podiums and 3 6th place. Right now, he is the most consistent driver across the Premier class, but he's only ahead by the best part of 14 points there, ahead of Carme GP2 Porsche's John Ludbrook, who seemed to be in the weeds compared to where he was only a couple of weeks before, and indeed a 9th and a 7th. Well, they're not bad results, no doubt about it, but I think he expected plenty more at Mugello, and it was all about damage limitation as he falls to 2nd place on 191. And he's on 191 at joint with Ricardo Luiz Pereira as the Portuguese driver continues to strive high, and after a podium, what was the opening race at Mugello, it was a 5th place in the second race of the day, but need another good point score to add to the victory at Portimao, and right now we do have a top 3 that's getting closer and closer. But it would be rude of us not to include Simcast Racing UK's Christopher Starsmore, the Ferrari driver, and one of the limited number of Ferrari drivers in the Premier class who seems to be showing that the prancing horses from Italy are going to do him proud with the 6-cylinder turbo engine. In the fact that so far he hasn't finished outside the top 10 of the Premier class, and he picked up some of his best results at Mugello with a 5th and a 4th place, and that means that he's currently the best part of what is almost 30 points ahead, or 26 to be precise, of Jan Österberg, the Swede. Unfortunately, he wasn't the smiling Swede coming away from Mugello. An absolutely frustrating day, all starting with difficulties in what was the opening race of the 2 sprint races there, and the 9th was at Glass Tech Racing driver has fallen all the way to 5th, and you can imagine today he's going to be looking to bounce back. Otherwise, he's going to have what is Mathew Croft chasing him down for Z-Axis Sim Sports, is only at what is the best part of 10 points behind, and you can see with the victory in what was the second of 2 race at Mugello, Jim Fox now moves into 7th place, just ahead of his teammate Robin Aston, and then we do have James Bostock, who after that heartbreak at Portimao, well, it wasn't quite the day he wanted last time out at Mugello, and in the end, still trying to find his feet as he tries to push forward from 9th place, with Pete Piper completing the top 10 there for LS Racing B. Outside the top 10, let's not forget about them, Scott Kostrich and also Dean Sheesby, and Sheesby not on the grid last time out, and we're hoping to see him back on the grid today in the Acura NSX Evo 22, and trying to go high for results there, going with 72 points into this round. Can he get plenty more come the end of today? Well, that's your top 12 in the Premier class. What about the Evo class? Well, the story here, it was a little bit different. We still do have Wesley Van Rens running away with the top of the standings, but as we mentioned moments ago, his stranglehold on victories has finally been broken after 3 victories back-to-back. A 4th and a 3rd at Mugello means he can no longer go for the claim of being the invincible driver of the Evo class, which many were thinking he might be trying to do. Instead now, what he's got to do is try to get himself back on that top step of the podium. He did pick up a 3rd place, of course, in the second race of the day, but a 4th place in the first race at Mugello, and it means there's a bit of vulnerability. Conversely, Edel Chowdhury moves into 2nd place with Verano Academy, and with what was a double podium with a 3rd and a 2nd, unfortunate not to take the victory in the second race of the day after it was a late error in his race against Grant Miller. Well, Chowdhury has moved into 2nd, but he's only got 1 point over Grant Miller, the double victor in the Ford Mustang, meanwhile, for Phoenix Racing. Well, it's looking close between the 2 of them, but can they put their rivalry aside and potentially chase down the leader? Well, that is going to be the challenge between the 2 of them, no doubt about it. From them, Mark Parkhurst, who won't be on the grid today due to personal circumstances, so this will become a drop round for him, but he sits in 4th place, 172 points, and we look forward to his return in a week's time at the Circuit of the Americas, and he's ahead of Road Turf Korea, a driver who's continued to have good run of results, albeit difficulty in what was the second of the race at Mugello means he's lost a bit of momentum, but he sits in 5th place, 163, and Eduardo Andino in the McLaren 720S Evo holds a stern 6th place there on 142. He's 3 ahead of Andre Montine, and then we do have in 8th place Daniel Paul ahead of Sean Clark, with your top 10 for the Evo class being rounded out by Gareth Newton as the battle there there from 8th through to 10th is only separated by the best 12 points, and that's before we include Owen Seward, who's only a further 14 points behind. Meanwhile, the man who's forgot to put fuel in the car for the last couple of races, Steve Rubino, he sits in 12th place for Hobo Racing, and after taking what was a brilliant pole position at Mugello in qualifying, if only you put the fuel in the car, you can only imagine where he might be going into this round. But of course, he's coming off the back of 2 DNFs, and he'll be hoping for at least a finish today, if not a victory. We're coming into the Teams Championship then, and to regale you on that, well, of course, this is the Teams Championship across both splits, so all the lobbies combined, Split A and Split B for the Season 8 Championship, and as we can see, it's still RDSA who lead the way there, and their advantage is gradually growing to 474 points over the 395 of what is Racing League Hub, and then behind them, we will have the combination of Z-Axis Sim Sports on 365, and they're ahead of their sister team, Y-Axis Sim Sports, by only 13 points. Your top 5 is completed by Carme GP2 Porsche as they continue to go from strength to strength, albeit they know they've got to dig a little bit deep into those reserves to take on the Axis Simsport teams. And then we do have in 6th place Vulcan Motorsports Gold, who have made some great progress at Mugello to move into 6th, only 4 points ahead of DDK Racing Team, what is E, and that would be the elite team there. And then we do have in 8th place, we are probably wondering, have we got all 3 Cartesian axes, given the fact we had a Z and a Y axis? Well, we do have in 8th place the X-Axis Simsports team there as well on 265 points. They're only 4 ahead of Phoenix Racing, who've leapt their way into the top 10 thanks to the double victory of Grant Miller at Mugello, and then completing the top 10 there on 247 points, it's Suma GP2 Porsche, with the results of Jim Fox and Robin Aston in the second race of day at Mugello massively benefiting their championship charge, but they've got to keep in mind that only 5 points ahead of the 11th place team, not shown on screen, and that is LS Racing B, who'll be trying to break back into the top 10 today, given they're on 242 points. But coming onto our circuit then, because of course we've regaled the story so far and where we sit after what is 3 rounds, but today in our new chapter, in Chapter 4 of this championship, we're at the Road America Full Course. Located near the village of Elkhart Lake in the Sheboygan County of the US state of Wisconsin, with a circuit spanning 4.04 miles or 6.51 kilometers, depending on your preference of units, is a circuit which is stapled in the mind of many. Consisting of 14 corners, you can see from the circuit map, it is a circuit which has long straights connecting very tight corner sequences. However, not all the corners are tight and slow. Indeed, many of you may remember turn number 11, the infamous American Kink, as our drivers will roar through there flat out when on low fuel and even on high fuel. And they've got the right setup and it's clean conditions, they'll be able to roll through their flat out, and indeed it's going to be an absolutely tremendous corner to go through. But the key to success around here is you need to be smart with your battling, because you can lose a lot of time, particularly if you battle from when it's turn 5 all the way through to the American Carousel at turn number 10, and also at Canada Corner all the way to the final corner at turn number 14. So from turns 12 to 14, you can go too wide all the way through there, but it costs you a lot of time, but can lead to some brilliant dramatic battles, and that's going to be in the minds of our drivers. And let's not forget that run down towards turn number 1, or should I say up to turn 1, given the fact it's an uphill charge from turn 14, one of the lowest points of the circuit to one of the highest points of the circuit at turn number 1. But as our drivers get ready to do battle, we've given you the story, we've given you the circuit. What we haven't given you is the ability to see our drivers once again, and as our drivers make the way out around here in this final practice warm-up session, they're only 2 minutes away from going into the qualifying session. And just a reminder, 15 minutes of qualifying is upcoming, with every driver allowed 1 out lap and 4 flying laps, and then we will be heading to the grid for our one and only race today, and that'll be our 60-minute race. In the quarantine booth, I should have introduced myself, but I do forget because I'm not that important. What's more important is our drivers and the championship that's ongoing. But in the quarantine booth, you have myself, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And I'll bring you all of your racing action today as it unfolds. And indeed, James Bostock, one of many drivers out there right now looking for a great result. But this is the man who we said earlier, who you can keep your eyes out for in the Premier class, Jan Ludbrook, who'll be absolutely keen to make sure he doesn't repeat what happened last time out at Road America, as he almost goes for a spin there, coming out of what was the right-angled left-hand corner before the carousel at turn number 8. Very easy to get it wrong there, but if he gets it right, there's a lot of speed available, and that's the speed he'll want to carry him through to victory. But as all the drivers get themselves set, it really was a story with regards to the racing at the Mugello circuit, and well, we've got some names that we're looking to be very eager to continue on that momentum from Mugello, and this man, Jim Fox, off the back of a victory in the Premier class, his first victory of the season. Can he pick up another victory here today? Well, if we do look to the class positions on the left-hand side of your screen, you'll see that Peter Duke right now, the fastest man overall in the Premier class there, on a 203.350, and meanwhile, with an 8/10 gap there to Christopher Starsmore, well, can Peter Duke just run off into the distance today? That'll be his target, of course, as we do see him parked up there in the pit lane, one of many drivers parked up in the pit lane. And meanwhile, in the Evo class, currently at 7th fastest overall is Owen Seward, and this is the first time that we have seen the McLaren driver set the fastest lap in Evo class in practice this, and could this be a sign of a change in times, and indeed a change in tide in that Owen Stewart hasn't really been there so far this season. That's not to belittle him, but he really has been a bit of a background character. But is he today going to become the main character of the story here in the Evo class and put himself right up there? Well, only he'll be able to tell. Meanwhile, a man will also be looking for redemption today, Craig Tillerson. A frustrating day coming out of Mugello. Also, a few instant points picked up for an instant, which was deemed to be his fault. So therefore, he's going to be looking forward and looking up. But as he makes his way through turn number 3, well, the checker flag comes out in practice, ladies and gentlemen. You know what time it is. It's time for us to make our way into qualifying. 15 minutes. Who's going to be on pole? Let's find out. So as qualifying begins to get underway then, well, let's bring you back in to what is the start of this qualifying session and give you a reminder of how the session plays out. This is, of course, a 15-minute session where all the drivers get their outlap plus 4 flying laps. Of course, once they completed the outlap, they're not allowed to reset back to the pit lane and get all their laps back. They will, every time they reset to the pit lane and go out, expend a lap. So the idea is you want to have a good outlap, get all your tyres nice and warmed up, and gradually build yourself up to your ultimate pace on what is typically lap 3 or lap 4 of qualifying, albeit some drivers will have different strategies. Some will opt just to keep drilling in the laps and use all 4 laps to try and get a best possible time. The theory being you have the lightest car at the end of the 4 laps, so you should have the tyres in the operating window, so long as you haven't pushed them too hard on an earlier lap, and you have the lightest car, so you'll get your best lap on lap number 4. However, other drivers may opt to have their out lap plus also what is another warm-up lap, where they'll drive slightly off pace on lap number 1 and perhaps even lap number 2, and then they'll go all for it on lap number 3 because the car will be a lot lighter, and indeed they won't have used any tyre life beyond getting the tyre up to temperature. Road America is an important circuit for qualifying because whilst you can battle here, as we mentioned time and time again, battling costs time. So if you can put it on pole and run away in the early stages, you can break that slipstream coming down to the likes of turn number 5, out of turn 3 on that open lap, you can run off into the distance and you can start to really make this race your own. And given the fact the weather forecast coming into today, we are expecting clear conditions, albeit we have got quite a bit of cloud over circuit at the moment, but we are expecting mostly clear conditions all the way into what is the qualifying session and out of it, and also into the early stages of the race. There is a potential risk we might be seeing some rain towards the end of the race today. We don't know when that rain is going to specifically fall, but the weather forecast is indicating we might see rain in what will be the final half an hour of the 60-minute race, and if so, strategy could become key. We're expecting it to be light rain based on what the weather forecast is, but light rain, well, that's a very subjective term these days, and we could see this come down to strategy in 9 if you need to go onto the wet tyre or whether you can survive on the dry. But right now, the only drive to survive will be to put it on pole, as we do see Steve Rubino making his way in towards what will be the final corner here to go into his opening flying lap in the Hobo Racing Machine. That lovely livery on the car here as he powers his way out, and indeed American muscle and American soul. It's a classic 5-litre V8 under the hood there of that Ford Mustang GT3, and as he heads across the timeline, here he goes then for his first flying lap. Now rowing his way down towards turn number 1 here. The opening couple of corners are all about trail braking into the corner and carrying as much speed to the apex as he goes through turn number 1. Deciding not to ride the curb there, maybe unsettling the car. If he does so, some drivers will ride that apex curve very high and coming down through the kinker 2 and in towards 3. A lower speed corner, but the same theme again. Trail brake to a late apex and then back on the throttle immediately because you've got a long run all the way down towards turn number 5. But as he makes his way under the Sargento cheese board and in towards what will be turn number 5, well, this is where the lap is now going to change its complexion because he's effectively coming down to a left-hand right-angled hairpin here as he makes one to the brakes, and a lot of drivers will go very wide out there under braking, but this time Rubino being quite conservatively as he comes on through, and now up the hill he goes. Blind apex here into turn number 6, braking on what is the road surface change there, and indeed over the elevation change, so that one settled the car. You've got to be very careful, but thankfully these cars have anti-lock braking systems, so that helps them control. Through the right-hander at turn number 7, that's all about throttle control, and now in towards turn number 8, a very sharp corner, one of the trickiest corners on the circuit. You need to go slow through here, but you also want to get back on that throttle as soon as possible to carry the speed into the carousel turns 9 and 10 through the double right-hander, and here it's all about positioning the car. You want to go for the perfect apex out of turn number 10, goes a little bit deep there on the exterior cameras, but brings it back together just about, and now in towards the kink. Turn number 11, we'll see our drivers go flat out through here in dry conditions and roaring his way on through. All right, now Rubino showing exactly how it's done as he makes his way onwards towards what will be and turn number 12 into Canada corner, and onto the brakes he goes here, looking on his left-hand side for his brake marker all the way through. One of those corners where it's very easy to carry too much speed, but Rubino carrying the right amount of speed as he makes his way out of there and in towards turns 13A and 13B at the chicane before he roars his way in towards turn number 14. And onto the brakes he goes, and as he does, well, right now, did he get a good exit? Will he carry all the speed up towards the timeline? Well, for all that and more, we're about to find out where drivers start to put their lap times together. And well, Ludbrook sets the initial Premier time of 2:04.546. Meanwhile, what's it going to be in the Evo class here? I think the first lap is going to come from Rubino, and it is going to be a 2:05.057. But immediately, fellow Ford driver Grant Miller goes faster by the best part of 3.5 tenths there. That is a 2:04.693. And well, more times coming on in as Peter Duke sets the boundary high in the Premier class and over on a 2:03.893, with 4.5 tenths faster than Christopher Starsmore. And it looks as though here Peter Duke is trying to repeat what he did in practice, which is put an absolutely incredible time in and leave everybody else wondering where that time came from as he makes his one to his second flying lap in that Acura NSX Evo. This is going to be a very interesting character, this Acura today, because we do know that this car is very strong with regards to its electronics. It's got one of the strongest traction control systems and anti-lock braking systems available to all of our drivers. And one of the downsides of this Acura is it can feel a little bit slow on the straight, or you have to sacrifice a lot of the area. You have to take a lot of rear wing off in order to get the speed out of this car on the straight. So therefore, for Peter Duke, the aim of the game is get the best possible corner exit, and by the time his rivals start to catch up to him, if he's running what would be a reasonable amount of rear wing, then he'll feel as though, in fact, his rivals won't have enough time to look to make the move under braking. And once he gets into the second half of the lap, or at least the mid-portion lap, which he's doing right now as he's made his way through turn 8 into turns 9 and 10, well, this is where the Acura will be at home, because he can use the stronger downforce effect of this Acura and the better cornering speeds or cornering capabilities in order just to open up that gap, converse to what would be the likes of the Ford Mustangs, for example, or the Ferraris, when they may find themselves stronger in the straights but lacking a little bit in the corners. But as he comes out of there, out of the King, well, absolutely glued down to the tarmac there. That car absolutely on a rocket ship of a run as he makes his way in towards Canada Corner. And Duke right now, well, he has got a bit of competition, because Ricardo Luiz Pereira has gone faster than him by 2.5 tenths on a 2:03.661. But Pereira taking his time. I wonder if Pereira's decided to opt to gamble on what is just 1 or 2 flying laps, so a very lightly fueled car, whereas Duke might be going for all 4 laps here and deciding to build up to a crescendo. Ooh, goodness me, as he runs wide there, and Duke pushing himself to the absolute limit as he comes out of turn number 14, and that's going to be a bit of frustration there, because that will spoil that lap, and it will spoil the next one as well, because he will lose top speed coming over the timeline here to go on to his 3rd flying lap. So it means he essentially has to write off this next lap, and he's going to have to do it all on his 4th flying lap, and well, that is going to be painful. Keep in mind, of course, with the lap times here being just over 2 minutes, you do not have that much time available with which to reset and go again in the qualifying session here at Road America, so you've really got to get the job done immediately. And well, a lot of drivers yet to get times on the board, including the Audi R8 Evo Mark II Evo driver here of Alex Boniface. He comes on down in the Crayola machine as he roars his way through turn number 8 into 9, and yet to get a lap on the board. He's on his 2nd flying lap, so I think he's right now just building up to getting a lap on the board here. And well, this Audi will be very good in the middle section of the lap, but may struggle a bit in when the medium and high speed corners are. And well, one of the reasons for the Evo 2 package of this Audi was some aerodynamic refinements to improve medium speed corner stability. One of the downsides of the Audi, as recognised by the Audi manufacturer and the customer teams in reality, and that Evo 2 package here just find a bit more stability over the rear end and the medium speed corners, such as coming into Canada Corner here, while those corners which will definitely be aided by having a little bit more medium speed stability as he makes one out, but not using all the runoff area there. And I think Boniface just playing it safe and building himself up to what will be a lap later on as he's coming towards the end of his 2nd flying lap. But how do all the drivers fit together in the qualifying order? Because remember, this is how they'll line up on the grid. They won't be split according to class, and we can see Ricardo Luiz Pereira currently the fastest driver of them all at the top of the tower, I should say, and Grant Miller, meanwhile, the fastest Evo driver on what is 5th place currently, and we're really in a world of his own with Steve Rubino the 2nd fastest and all the way down in 11th place. And well, Alex Boniface meanwhile going to the bottom of the time tower, what is at 33rd there on a 2:08.395, but now lightly going in for another lap, and this time it'll be with a bit more attack. Meanwhile, Owen Seward, who was expected to potentially be one of the big names to strike hard here, given the pace we did see from him at the end of practice, well, right now he's currently 18th overall, 4th place in the Evo class, so I wonder if Seward here perhaps managed to find an absolutely brilliant lap and hook it up in practice, but that lap has now gone wandering here as he's gone into what is qualifying. Well, let's find out, because we're going to jump on board with Owen Seward as he takes us around for a flying lap here, and what will be going on to his final flying lap of this qualifying session. So he heads across the timeline, and well, as he does so, that lap was not improvement, so he's going to have to bank it all in this one lap then as he heads into turn number 1, a braking there at what will be 100 meters of corner apex, down to 4th gear, mounting that apex curve as much as possible to carry the speed, and now down through the kinker 2, in towards 3, and looking to his left-hand side, braking at what will be the 100-meter board, down to 3rd gear, and as he clears the corner, back on the throttle immediately, having to abuse the strengths of that rearward rotation at McLaren as he now makes his way onwards here and just gives into the wonderful roar of what is that V8 twin turbo. Let's listen to it. But we can't listen to it for too long, because now he breaks his way down to turn number 5, breaking 150 meters of corner apex, 2nd gear, a lovely approach to the apex there, now making his way out, up the rise he goes, blindsided here, braking as he goes under the bridge, holding 3rd gear as he makes his way through, goes a little wide of apex there, that'll cost him a couple of attempts as he heads in towards turn number 7. Here it's about balancing the throttle, upshifts to 4th interestingly on the turn-in order to settle the rear down and get the throttle re-engaged earlier. Now from 5th he'll drop all the way down to 2nd gear here, into left-hander of 8, in fact no, stays in 3rd gear there, opts for a higher gear in order to get more power down, albeit at what is the cost of perhaps not getting as much what is horsepower delivered, but he'll feel more confident in the car. And now going through turns 9 and 10 through the carousel, lets the car roll out there. A lovely line from Stewart as he heads in towards the kink. Let's listen. Completely flat out as he makes his way through, bounced over the apex curve, the car getting a little bit unsettled, but not enough to upset Stewart as he roars his way now in towards turn number 12, and as he goes in towards the braking zone here into Canada corner, braking nice and early there and getting a nice early apex, roars it out, and now heading up towards what will be turns 13A and 13B. They're right into left here where you're blindsided at the apex of 13B, but you've got to clip that apex, doesn't quite carry all the speed to the outside there, and well, being a bit conservative, but still gets a lovely line into 14. Does he nail it on exit? He just about keeps it on circuit, and Owen Stewart there absolutely pushing it to the limit. Is it going to be enough to improve? I suspect the answer is yes, it will, but can he get any higher from 19th on this grid? Always 4th place in Evo currently on his final flying lap, and in the end it's not enough to improve, in fact, and Stewart there losing out right at the closest final sector, losing all the time he gained in the earlier portions of the lap, and that is going to be, well, he'll go on to one more lap here. Stewart, he will have one more lap available. We've miscounted the number of laps, and Stewart's going to have to try and do it once more there, but it's so close right now to move further up the order. Well, meanwhile, whilst he's trying to make some progress, other drivers are yet to make progress. Wesley Van Rens, who's down in 27th, or what is class position-wise, that is 8th in Evo right now. Van Rens, the pace isn't there right now compared to where it has previously been, and that's a surprise there for the Ferrari 488 driver. Well, in fact, Ferrari 488, goodness me, I'm thinking of the older GT3. I've got the old GT3s on the brain right now. That's the 296 Ferrari, I should say, in terms of the manufacturer model, and as he makes his way onwards here, well, right now the number 99 driver absolutely charging onwards, but it seems as though running out a little bit of steam in qualifying. What can he do come the close here, given the fact that right now his best time being a 205.57, which was his previous best. He runs very wide there at what is turn number 5, heading up the hill. It's not been a happy lap for Van Rens, and it's looking as though this is not going to be a happy end to his qualifying session. He's going to have to do all the hard work from further down the order, as we say hello to Dean Tyler, who's cheering on Lame Sheep Racing today, or LS Racing at B, I do believe. Well, looking up from what is one Evo driver struggling to one Premier driver who finds himself right in the thick of it. Well, this is Liam Fraser making his way onwards here, and in fact Fraser on a cool-down lap there, given he's completed all his qualifying laps, so P12 will be the highest he starts in class. 15th overall is where he's going to start at the best right now, and meanwhile Nick Stubb, the man who took victory overall in Premier in what was the first race at Mugello with that brilliant qualifying session, and then just ran away of the race when his rivals battled hard. Well, Stubbs heading towards the line here, have one more lap available to him, and what's he going to be able to do? He's going to squeeze in one more lap after this. Will we jump on board with Stubb as he heads around the Porsche 992 GT3? So he's 7th place at the moment, where's 8th overall, but 7th in Premier. Into turn number 1 he goes, and this is going to be a dance for the rear of the car as he makes way for the opening corner, absolutely maximising the out track use there as he now heads in towards turn number 3, down to 3rd gear here, and he'll absolutely hammer the throttle corner exit, hope that the rear axle will line up. It does so perfectly, and Stubb makes his way onwards. Well, as he does so, in terms of his opening sector, it's not been a personal best, and now he makes his way into what will be the run of the middle sector as he comes down towards the braking zone for turn number 5, and Stubb on the attack here as he breaks way down. Final flying lap, he'll just about squeeze this in with the time remaining, we do believe, but runs out a little bit wide there. Is that going to invalidate lap? It doesn't look like it, just about in track limits as he heads into turn number 6, mounting the curve there, very early apex on the curve at turn number 6. In fact, I think getting a bit greedy with the curve as he now makes way into turn number 7, brief lift of the throttle, and then back on the throttle straight away as the flat 6 carries the car down all the way up to 9,000 RPM before the shift line, and Stubb making his way through a left hand and absolutely mountain. The apex curb there of turn number 8 will take in a very liberal use of curbs, I can tell you that, as he comes through 9 into 10, but perhaps there's some wisdom in this as he goes very deep at the run of the first part of the carousel, and Stubb decides he's made a mistake. It's not going to come together anymore. So Stubbs' qualifying session is complete as he toes back to what is the pit lane, and I believe, ladies and gentlemen, that is qualifying complete. So in the end, overall pole position will go to Ricardo Luiz Pereira. A brilliant pole lap there on a 2:03.661, 2.5 tenths faster than Peter Duke. Both of those drivers getting their best laps in on the second flying lap of this qualifying session. And meanwhile, pole position in the Evo class has gone the way of Grant Miller. And, well, he missed out on pole by a slender margin at Mugello, but today he's taking that pole position. He's looking to make it 3 wins in a row. Carrying on from the 2 he picked up Mugello circuit, but that's going to be easier said than done, as we do say hello there to MTB Skidmark, who says, "Hi, Mum," I think in reference perhaps to Mum and even Dad or family tuned it in. And, well, great to have a number of drivers also, I think, watching the broadcast back after the fact and also on the day, as Christian Malaskov as well, while the lowest qualified Premier driver starting 31st today, and just ahead of Denny Plurger, who was 4 thousandths behind, and those two very close in a rivalry, but a rivalry that's a long way down the order and not where they want it to be. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's qualifying complete. It's time to now make our way to the grid for our one and only race of the day. So as our drivers make their way onto the grid, this is how they'll line up to our visit to Road America in round number 4 of Season 8 of the Evolution Sim Racing GT3 Championship, powered by Trophy AI. And of course, this is Split B with the Premier and Evo classes. Ricardo Luiz Pereira has taken pole position for Vulcan Motorsport Silver. He is joined on the front row as the Portuguese by Peter Duke for DDK Racing Team. From them onto row number 2, it's going to be the battle between Simcast Racing UK's Christopher Starsmore and John Ludbrook for Carme GP2 Porsche. And, well, Ludbrook putting it all together at the close of the qualifying session, and Starsmore once again putting himself right in the thick of it at the front of the field. From them onto row number 3, it's going to be your Evo pole sitter of Grant Miller, and the Phoenix Racing driver, who many of you may remember in his post-round interview at Mugello, he talked about the fact he had plenty of time to practice Mugello, but Road America was a little bit of an unknown circuit for him, where it can't be that much of an unknown. Alternatively, he's learned it very quickly, but the Scotsman has put it 5th and is the pole sitter in Evo class, and well done to him. He'll be in the company of Mathew Croft, or Crofty to his friends, as they access Sim Sports. And then on what is row number 4, starting 7th, Scott Kostrich there for Carme GP2 Porsche, and he'll be joined by Nick Sturbert for Vulcan Fasteners by Glasstech. Not quite able to return to the front row of the grid, but still an 8th place start. That's not going to be too bad. Andre Montine, the Romanian driver, starts 9th as Alexis Sim Sports, and he'll be joined on what is row number 5 to complete the top 10 by James Bostock for Carme GP2 Porsche, whose qualifying performances are going forwards, not backwards, and he's gradually making it a more and more certainty that he's going to be qualifying inside the top 10. Well done to him. Road Turf Cure starts what is there in 2nd place, while Evo drives 11th place on the overall grid. A great qualifying performance for the MJK Sim Racing driver from the Netherlands, and he's in the company of his fellow countryman Menno Bleum for Sim Racing Team Lowlands, who starts 12th. On row number 7 will be the pairing of Steve Rubino for Hobo Racing and Rob McKee for DXT Motorsports. And then we do have Liam Fraser for Moonshiners Racing Club, who starts 15th today, and he's in the company of Owen Seward for DXT Motorsports, who put it all together in practice, but in qualifying it didn't seem to come together as much as he would have liked for the McLaren driver, and now he's got the hard work to do from the 8th row of the grid. Meanwhile, behind him on row number 9 is the Swede of Jan Österberg for Nifels at Glasstech Racing, and the Briton of LS Racing Bees, Adam Baker. And your top 20 is completed by Charlie Stoffard and Jim Fox. A Summit GP2 line up alongside the Team KXR driver, and, well, that Team KXR driver, Charlie Stoffard, many of you may remember at Mugello the highlights he put together. He had his own highlight reel, arguably, because of how close the fighting went between him, drivers in the Evo class, drivers in the Premier class. It seemed as though, come what may, he wanted to battle with everybody, and the number 8 driver definitely showing his fighting credentials. And then coming on to what is a row at number 11, starting 21st, Edward Chowdhury, the Canadian driver for Verona Academy. He's not too far away from his homeland, but right now it's going to not quite feel as home, starting 21st on this grid, and known as a lot of work to do. He's in the company of Sander Tabas for Sim Racing Team at Lowlands. And then we have on 23rd, James Pallett for Racing League Hub, ahead of LS Racing B's Pete Piver, the Brazilian driver, having another difficult qualifying session, with row number 13 then being occupied by Ross Norsworthy, Simcast Racing UK, and Rob Gregg for Moonshiners Racing Club. Wesley Van Rens starts 27th for Racing League Hub, a frustrating qualifying session there for the Evo Championship leader, and that championship momentum definitely seemingly slipping, but the Dutchman has proven that sometimes he doesn't need to start at the front of the field in order to finish the race winner, and we got to see that in particular at Watkins Glen in the early stage of the season. From the Racing League Hub driver, we'll have Rhino Academy's Craig Tillison line up 28th, and then completing the top 30 is Danny Veer for what is DXT Motorsports, and Vulcan Fasters by Glasstech's Dale Williams, who starts 30th. From the Mercedes driver, we then do have Christian Malaskov for Renault Academy, who starts 31st, ahead of Denny Ploger, who completes the Premier drivers on the grid for MJK Sim Racing. And it's Evo drivers all the way to the end, with Sean Clark for DXT Motorsports lined up on row number 17 in the company of Jan Nagy. And then from the Nifels at Glasstep Racing Drive, we do have on what is row number 18, Eduardo Andino for LS Racing B and his teammate Mark Wesley for LS Racing B. And then we do have on the final full row of the grid, starting 37th, it will be Alex Boniface for DXT Motorsports in the Audi R8 Evo. And we have Martin Kug for what is MJK Sim Racing at 38th on the grid. And from the Dutchman to the Briton of James Fraser, no lap on the board in qualifying. He starts 39 out of 39 drives here today for Moonshiners Racing Club as they make the way around. Albeit I'm hearing at the moment, Road Turfkua is starting from the pit lane. There's been some sort of issue with the car, so he's going to be starting for the pits. That'll promote a lot of drives up a position. But as that grid makes its way on around right now, well, all the drives inching away and through as we say hello there to Maris Hibima, or Hibma, I should say, Maris Hibma. And good evening to you, Maris. Hope you're doing well. Who's cheering on Grant? And I believe that's Grant Miller we're referring to. But as all the drives make the way through, it's one of the longest formation laps here as well. So it's a full formation lap around Road America. And at the very front of the field, it's going to be the battle of the Acuras once again. And we'll take these two names. And you may recall that at Mugello in the opening race of the day, they fought hard when Nick Stubb was able to run away to victory. Ricardo Luiz Pereira will be one side of the ring on the right side of the grid on pole, and Peter Duke on the left hand side as they line up and we look from behind them. But these two are going to have some fireworks down towards turn number one, respectful fireworks. But behind them, Christopher Starsmore, he will be one of a number of drivers looking at this as we ride on board with the second row starter in the Simcast Racing UK Ferrari 296, and he'll be hoping that the two leaders fight each other enough that he can just jump into the lead and try and run away from it and pick up his first victory of the season. But it's easier said than done here when the field is this close together. And whilst the clouds are gradually coming over, it's looking very ominous as I look at my comment TV. I think rain is going to come sooner rather than later. Well, meanwhile, we look a bit further down the order to the likes of Charlie Stoffard and Edward Chowdhury, who line up close together, and you can expect these two to battle each other quite hard. And they've got the company of the likes of Sander Tabbers and James Pallett behind, all trying to make the way on through. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, as the drivers make the way for the last couple of quarters, and we're Road Turfkua down the end of the pit lane, waiting for what will be that pit lane start, we now look to our pole man, Ricardo Luiz Pereira, as he takes us racing for 60 minutes of racing action here in round number 4 of the championship at Road America. And it's lights out, away we go for the fourth round of the season, and our 60-minute feature race gets underway. Ricardo Luiz Pereira gets a good start there, but Peter Duke now seems to pick up in the second phase. Keep an eye out for Christopher Starsmore there. As you can see, Pereira cuts across to the racing line, and as they make the way down into that braking zone, well, meanwhile, Grant Miller happy to lose the place to Mathew Croft. It guarantees him safety as the field all comes from through. Oh, goodness me, taking the rallycross line is Liam Fraser. I'm not quite sure what's happened there, but Fraser going very sideways very early on and bringing himself gradually back onto the racing surface, albeit not wanting to be a thorn in everybody's side as the whole field gradually concertinas its way down. And James Fraser, the other member of the Fraser family, a bit further back battling here with what is Martin Cook and Alex Boniface as they all come through. And I think Liam Fraser's had to be towed to the pits. I think some damage has been picked up, but I'm not quite sure what damage, other than the fact he's had to sacrifice that opening lap. But as all drives make the way on through, well, Minno Blum versus James Bostock is meanwhile going very tight on the inside there. And that is going to be the accurate Andre Montine as they go three wide for a brief moment. Bostock clears the pair of them. He manages to avoid the reverse Moses manoeuvre, and as they head on around, well, Minno Blum there holding the outside versus Andre Montine as they come on through what is turn number 6 in towards 7, and now things will calm down for a brief moment. Steve Rubino on the back of this in the Evo Ford Mustang, second place Evo runner, and I think he's just watching it eagerly right now to see where the wind's going to blow for their battle. But from them, Jim Fox meanwhile trying to make some progress versus Edward Chowdhury. In fact, Fox has made a couple of places since the start. Sander Tabbers has followed him through as well. And the Corvette C8R driver, or the Z06 as its proper designation, was they come on through the right-hander at turns 9 and 10. Well, right now, Sander Tabbers absolutely on the attack here, but can't seem to find a way through as they make the way on around and into the kink. But just in front, James Bostock has got a minute Blum right on his rear as they make the way on towards Canada Corner. And well, it's going to be Bostock on the outside here for the Kame GP2 Porsche versus that Ferrari of Blum's going to go to the inside, and surely Blum's going to go for the move here, all in. He does indeed, as behind them, that is Adam Baker trying to muscle his way past the muscle car Steve Rubino. He's going to do so then. I think Rubino looking in his mirrors and seeing it coming. Meanwhile, Bostock is under a lot of pressure as he's got Montine trying to go all the way around the outside. Can't quite find it, can Montine, but meanwhile, it's going to be Adam Baker on the outside as they make the way towards turn number 14. Baker tries to do the double around the outside of turn 14. I've never seen that happen. It's not going to happen today as they come towards the end of the first lap of many here at Road America. They roar the way across the line, but Baker does get the better run of Montine and now tucks into the Ricardo Bostock and gains a place. Steve Rubino's on the back of this, and he thinks he can drag his way past it to make up some overall places as they calm down. But look at the field scattering behind, and that's not too far from McKee, Stoffard or Stewart as they all come through, and it's going to be too wide. There's Stoffard on the outside battling with Rob McKee, and McKee here trying to hold on here as they make their way down towards the braking zone. In fact, I think now Stoffard on the inside, let me correct myself, it was. So Stoffard there went all in for the move on the DXT Racing driver and did a fantastic job then. Charlie Stoffard once again very quickly bearing his fangs and moving up into 13th, but more importantly for him, now on the back of Steve Rubino. He's had a brilliant start as Charlie Stoffard, and well, I'm not quite sure what he's had for breakfast right now, but keep giving it to him, because I can tell you one thing, it's energising him non-stop as they make their way in towards turn number 5. Will he be under pressure from Montine? The answer is no, he won't. Montine stays where he is. Further back, Pete Piver here having to battle his way past Sander Tabbers. Tabbers, who made a good start in that Corvette Z06, now falling a little bit backwards, losing the place he's gained early on, but I think this might be just a brief halt or a brief calm before the storm, and as they make their way through the corners in towards what will be the carousel very shortly, turns 9 and 10. Well, these drivers right now all running close, but not close enough to think about moving to the kink. You don't normally go for it, albeit as they roar their way in towards turn number 8. We've got to wait to the kink first. Well, Piver right now just watching the back of Fox and hoping for that potential move if he can. Jan Osterberg as well, also trying to make a bit of progress. He hasn't really gained or lost any places since the start. So right now, the Porsche 992 driver just holding firm, and sometimes he just wants to involve himself into the race. Indeed, many a driver might want to just build themselves up before they really do go on the attack. And also, I think there's going to be that big question mark if rain does come. How important will strategy be? Do you need to make the fuel last a long time just to make sure you only have to do the one pit stop today? There's a little squeeze there. Piver trying to make his way into the kink there before they came out of turn 11A and onwards towards 12 they go. Benyon couldn't find his way through, but Piver very eager to make some progress. They're getting a good run, but looking at the wrong way to make the move, and picking the wrong way is going to be tantamount to disaster, because in the end the door slammed shut firmly in his face as James Bostock meanwhile tries to make some progress here from what is the turn number 14 in 10th place. Looking to the front of the field, well, after a little bit of close nip and tuck on that open lap, Ricardo Luiz Pereira is breaking away from Peter Duke. The gap now up to as they go on to lap number 3 to 1.2 seconds. From then, Christopher Starsmore sits in 3rd ahead of Mathew Croft, followed by John Ludbrook in 5th. Then it's Nick Stubb in 6th, Scott Kostrich in 7th, and Kostrich just ahead of your Evo leader of Grant Miller, who's dropped to 8th place, having started at 5th place on the grid, but keeping in mind he hasn't lost class positions, he's only lost overall positions. In 9th place we have Menno Blum, and then James Bostock completes your top 10. Adam Baker is best of the rest, P11 ahead of Steve Rubino, who's your 2nd place runner in what is the Evo class, and Charlie Stoffard, who's been one of the biggest gainers in the Evo class since the start, at least in the Evo top 5. Well, right now he's trying to look for a potential move on Steve Rubino, but he hasn't got the momentum here. But speaking of momentum, here's Owen Stewart battling side by side with Andrew Montine. They get their elbows on each other. Montine in the end out breaks the McLaren Stewart, albeit goes a bit deep himself as a result, and gives the place up, and well, that's going to be easy pickings for Stewart, he'll think, as he'll move up. Charlie Stoffard meanwhile on the inside there of Steve Rubino, and up into 2nd in the Evo class. A lovely move there from the McLaren driver, and absolutely looking as though right now he's flying high, and that Mustang's at a standstill, and Stoffard is absolutely attacking every lap, and it shows because he's making up those places. And surely as he continues to progress, it won't be long before he tries to break away from this pack and goes hunting after Grant Miller. And that's going to be very interesting, because right now the number 6 driver, we talked about the fact he battled as hard as anybody could at Mugello, regardless of what drivers around him, and right now he has not been tempered down as he makes his way onwards. But as he does so, we're looking a bit further back to one of our lower running what is drivers in the Premier class. Well, you're going to ride on board here with none other than Denny Plurger, as right now in 29th place overall, at 22nd in the Premier class. What is one of the last running Premier drivers here, chasing after Christian Malskov. Both of these drivers having a difficult qualifying session, starting from towards the back of the Premier class, but of course there's a long way to go here, 60 minutes of racing, and therefore it's going to take some time, and sometimes it's not about how you start, it's about how you finish, as we do see Malskov there taking a little bit of liberal use of the runoff area, and as they head in towards turn number 13, over the crest they go, and Plega right now just not seemingly able to keep close, and I think might be a little bit upsetting the dirty air of all the cars in front, and Dale Williams' Mercedes AMG, which is 2 places in front. That is going to be a hard car to pass on these straights, given the amount of speed that 6.3 litre V8 deploys, albeit its weakness of course is low speed corners, but get it nailed out those corners, and it's a very hard car to catch even for some of the faster machines down those straights, and that's when the Mercedes will shine as our drivers make their way onto lap number 4. But as they do, and we say hello there to none other than Pedescu Dennis in the YouTube chat, who I believe will be here to cheer on the Vrano Academy drivers in particular, the Vrano Motorsport drivers in particular I should say. But I hope you're doing well, Pedescu, And, well, as the drivers continue onwards, one of the biggest surprises from qualifying was the disappointing performance, some could say, of Wesley Van Rens, albeit whether he's disappointed in his own performance or not, I can't tell you, but it was at least a shock to us given how high he's typically qualified. And right now, he's not really closing on Rob Gregg. He's falling backwards into the clutches of Ross Norworthy and also Dale Williams and Christian Malasco as they come on down here. And it's going to be a change of place between two Ferrari 296s, as that's going to be Norworthy's Simcast Racing UK on the inside here as they make the way up the hill into turn number 6. It's battling, going 2 by 2 into the braking zone. Well, that's going to cost them all time, but Norworthy does make the place. Van Ren's now under pressure on Dale Williams, as Williams and the Mercedes now looking around the outside, can't quite find it. He's got Malasco for company right behind him, so he's very eager to clear Van Rens as they come on down. Williams to go look to the inside into turn 8. You can go for it here, but it's a very tight apex, and in the end decides not to, just gets chopped off there at the exit. And as they make the way out towards turn number 9, well, Van Rens is really struggling, goes to the gravel. That's going to cause Williams to look around the outside here, but Williams is not going to have the momentum to do so. They have to try and cut back and get a better run as they make the way onwards. We ride on board and look back from the rear of what is the number 99 Ferrari that's in 26th, and it is really struggling right now, is Van Rens. And as he makes his way through the queue, doesn't appear to be any visible signs of damage on the car. I think this circuit and the combination is just not hooking up with him, and indeed right now it is going to be a race where I think he's just trying to try and get himself reset and get himself back into it if he can. But meanwhile, speaking of drivers who need to get themselves back into it, well, we did have an incident on the open lap for Liam Fraser, and let's take a look back at what exactly happened here, ladies and gentlemen. And this was a surprise at race start. Can we discern anything is the question. So a reasonable start in amongst the top 15 drivers, made his way down to turn 1, misses braking point, oh goodness me, and in the end has to brake on grass, and unfortunately just hits the barrier there as he made his way across the grass in towards the apex section of turn number 1, and Liam Fraser's race in the end coming to an abrupt standstill as quickly as it got started, all for a small mistake, and that's why he's had to tow to the pits practically straight after. We did also have a bit of an incident for a fellow member of the Fraser family on the same lap. That was James Fraser, and this was coming up through the kink on cold tyres, a bit too much speed, oh my good lord, and losing the rear there, and almost collecting Denny Player in the process. And well, the MRC driver in the end into the barrier, and we was able to get back to the pit lane, but a bit of a nightmare moment. And we also had 2 laps later on lap number 3, Craig Tillotson involved in a bit of an incident here in the Corvette Zone 6. What exactly happened to him? This was further down the order through turn number 3, loses the rear slide, the rear starts to go round, and in the end catches the car in time before it goes to the barrier, gets it turned on the grass very nicely indeed. In fact, 10 out of 10 for catching the car, but in the end losing a lot of places as a result. And also on that same lap we had a bit of an incident for Mark Wesley, and this was he made his way up the hill in towards turn number 6. Does he go a bit deep? No, he doesn't, but the rear of the car makes his way around before he can make his way out the corner and into the barrier, and I think Mark Wesley might be looking at a bit of a pit stop as a result to repair the car. But those were some of the major incidents that we did see on what was the opening couple of laps of the race in here at Road America. We've still got a long way to go, but with 10 minutes complete and 50 to go, let's come back to your live racing action. And well, as we do, well, we look back inside the top 10 here and look to the class positions once again on the left-hand side of your screen, and we see Scott Kostrich here right now chasing after Nick Stubb. And well, Stubb and Kostrich, 2 Porsche 992 drivers. They do have, of course, John Ludbrook in amongst them as well, and the Carme GP2 Porsche driver trying to make a bit of progress as Grant Miller, meanwhile, on the back of then Menno Blem trying to catch up for about Adam Baker there as he comes out the corner, looks one way, looks the other, tries to throw the dummy there on Bostock, but Bostock says, I've seen that one before, I'm not going to fall for it twice. And as they come out of turn number 14, Baker right now, that was a very bold attempt at a dummy in towards 14. He's getting very eager to make a move here. Can he find a move down the start finish straight? Well, we ride on board here and look down over the front of the LS Racing B191. And well, Baker not close enough here to look for that potential move. He's going to have to wait his turn, or is he? We can see in front there Stoffard, who is the second place running Evo driver. Ever since getting ahead of this pack, he hasn't really broken away, has Stoffard, but he has been able to put a small gap and is really pulling Bostock along at the moment on the straight. And Bostock, I think, has got a lot of speed in the corners, but he hasn't got as much grunt on the straights. It is, of course, a potential downside of the Porsche 992 in the fact that it is a cornering car, albeit you can get a very high top speed out of it, but you've got to sacrifice a lot of the rear wing in order to do so. But that rear wing gives it the rear stability, along with the way the engine is mounted over the rear axle. But as they come down towards the braking zone here, well, it's going to be a move out the inside. Bostock goes all in, but there's contact there with Stoffard, and Baker comes into the scene in the instant and doesn't quite expedite it. But right now, that is going to be a nightmare moment for his boss dot, and now looking to try and make up the place is Steve Rubino as he tries to go around the outside there, but that's not going to work, and here comes Owen Seward. Seward side by side with Rubino here and gets elbowed out as they make the way through turn number 7, and Seward won't be too pleased with that. He'll feel as though he's been pushed wide, but behind them, we can't hold the phone for a minute because Raidul Chowdhury is right now trying to get Andrew Montine and Rob McKee to fight each other as they go too wide out of turn number 8, and in the end, Montine holds off McKee for now. McKee charging in was the pink DXT McLaren 720 Evo, and as they roar the way through, Jan Osberg and Jim Fox and Pete Piver all queuing up on the back of this, and as they all head onwards towards what will be the kink this time, well, they'll settle down into single line formation, but it is getting very touchy-feely at what is the bottom end of the top 15 between our drivers right now, and I think a lot of drivers here trying to make some early progress as quickly as they possibly can, but they might have to calm it down a little bit as here comes McKee on the inside of Montine. 2 wide into Canada they go as Fox tried to have a sneaky peek up the inside of Osberg, but couldn't quite find it, but Montine carries the speed around the outside of Canada quarter to the inside of 13, and well, in the end it's not going to matter because McKee says whatever you can do I can do better, and he takes the place of Montine, who's losing the place to Osberg now, and as they make the way in towards turn number 14, well, they're all swapping places. Here comes Fox for as well, and well, Pete Piver's going to be next up on the list here in the drag race down the start finish straight, or should I say up it, as they roar the way past us and on towards what will be another lap. And it's going to be Fox on the inside versus Piver and Montine on the outside. And well, Fox is not going to the slipstream down towards turn number 1, but he will have the inside. But he's got to be brave on the brakes here to make the magic happen. Oh, in he goes, and Fox will take the place out of Montine for now. Albeit as they come out of the corner down towards turn 3, will Andrew Montine look for a counter-attack? The answer is no, he won't. He'll stay where he is. But meanwhile, Sander Tabbers sees an opportunity here to try and look round the outside. Oh, it's Pete Piver, but he can't quite find it as they head onwards. And now down was the run towards turn number 5. You can see up there James Pallett also queuing up. Danny Veer also trying to now get involved. This fighting is absolutely cutthroat between these drivers, as that is going to be Pallett pulling out on the toe, looking to the inside here. But has he got enough of an overspeed? He's going to go all in on the brakes. Will he get stopped in time as Petit comes in blazing hot, but in the end finds a gap between the two cars. And to be fair, I think Sander Tabbers saw a fast charging Acura coming in his left-hand mirror and said, okay, hold your line, let it go between the two cars. So that could have been far, far worse, but great awareness and control from all 3 drivers there, including Montine as well, to find the gap and thread the needle, because that could have been a nightmare, but they all handled that brilliantly, and I think Montine just a bit eager. But meanwhile, whilst all that's happening, let's come back to your race leaders, because this has kicked off quite recently in the fact that Ricardo Luiz Pereira, who was the faster of the two on the previous lap, well, Peter Duke was only 100 slower, and right now it seems as though despite the start that Luiz Pereira had, Peter Duke has upped it a level and decided, right, now I'm going to play the chase, I'm going to hunt you down as they make the way on through. And well, right now the Mugen sponsored Acura of Luiz Pereira will be hoping that engine definitely will have the Mugen feel behind it, because as they make the way out the corner, Peter Duke makes a small mistake, and that's going to cost him a bit of time. They'll open that gap up to the best part of what will be 9/10 they come across the timeline this time, and as they make the way onto another lap, well, right now Ricardo Luiz Pereira has bought himself some time, but how much time has he bought himself? That's the question. But meanwhile, it's time to take a look at the battle for third place, because this is Christopher Starsmore versus Mathew Croft, as meanwhile John Ludbrook tries to make it 3 wide down the start finish straight. Well, as they come on down here, John's adventurous, but I didn't realise how adventurous he wanted to be, but it is going to be the ZX's Simsport machine of Mathew Croft that takes third of a Christopher Starsmore. A lovely move there into turn 1, textbook move, and as they come in towards turn number 3, well, Mathew Croft now up into the podium places for the first time today, and well, Starsmore and Ludbrook will be watching on from behind, as I think there's more to this battle than meets the eye. Oh my good lord, and what on earth has happened here to Jan Osberg, who's gone the completely wrong way round in terms of the pointing direction of the car and into the tyre barrier there. What was the exit of turn number 1? We're going to have to get a replay of that very shortly, but I think he's been involved with a shunt with another driver. Well, we've got Steve Rubino and Charlie Stoffard battling for second place here in the Evo class, so very quickly these two fighting. Stoffard has gone backwards. That might be a sign of what's potentially happened, as Alan Baker, the Premier driver, is at the front of this for LS Racing B. 3 wide they almost go in towards turn number 5. In the end, it's 2 wide between the 2 Evo drivers. Rubino on the inside, it's going to be Stoffard on the outside. Up the hill they go in towards turn number 6, onto the brakes, and Rubino here going as defensive as he can, and Stoffard meanwhile just having to wait his turn for a brief moment as we ride on board and look back from the rear of the second place Evo car. But right now this batting is absolutely brilliant, and Owen Seward and Edward Chowdhury has caught up to the back of this, so we've got a 4-way fight effectively now for second in Evo. And Grant Miller meanwhile, he is the best part of 10 seconds up the road from all of this, and I think he's just enjoying the fact that whilst some Premier drivers are passing him, he's not getting involved in these fights, and he's buying himself a little bit more comfort over the race distance. But as they come out of the carousel and on towards the kink, we can see Rubino there able to pull away, get a couple of attempts between himself and Stoffard. That's going to give him a lot of breathing room coming through the kink and up towards Canada quarter, and now Stoffard's going to be under the pressure from leaving Seward and Chowdhury behind as they head in towards what will be the latter half of the lap. But coming on down, well, there is going to be Owen Seward looking for the move. He's going to go all in on the inside here into Canada corner. It's the battle of the McLarens, and Owen Seward in the number 21 takes third place in the Evo class for now, and I say for now because Charlie Stoffard goes to the cutback here. But is he going to be adventurous around the outside of turn 13? That's going to be brave. That's going to be very brave from Stoffard. Can he get it done? He can, and Charlie Stoffard, my God, oh goodness me, it all goes from there to 14 under braking, and what was looking to be a brilliant move for an overtake. In the end, Stoffard's gone backwards into the gravel. Was he knocked by Owen Seward? The camera angle would suggest so, but we haven't seen anything to confirm. But now Edor Chowdhury moves up into fourth in what is the Evo class, and as they head down the start-finish straight here, every lap right now is a tale in itself as they roar the way onwards in towards turn number 1. And we'll very quickly, we're going to be getting a replay of what exactly happened to Jan Osberg, who ended up pointing backwards at turn number 1 only moments ago. And well, before we do that, we need to come back to your race leaders, because this is Ricardo Luiz Pereira being passed by Peter Duke. Duke's on the inside of the DDK Racing team, and he takes the lead of this race. The 177 moves into the top spot just in time as they roar the way in towards turn number 6. And right now, those clouds are getting darker out outside my commentary booth window. And oh, I can tell you, there's no rain at least on the cameras at the moment. I'm not hearing any reports of rain out on the circuit, but I wouldn't be surprised if a few spots start to fall within the next 10 minutes, if not sooner. But as they come in towards turn at number 8, we'll change the lead, and Luiz Pereira right now just tucking in behind, I think, following suit. But I would imagine that he's going to have a game at this very shortly and trying to get the place back, because that could be an important place later on in the race, not just at a checker flag, but in terms of dictating who comes in first on strategy. But without further ado, we need to take a look back at what happened at the start of lap number 8, and this was Jan Osberg, who very quickly ended up in the wrong direction at turn 1. Oh, goodness me, and clipped there by what was the charging Suma GP2 Porsche. And we'll try to understand which the car it was. I think that was Jim Fox that he made the contact with in the end. Yes, it was indeed. We can confirm. And Jan Osberg being turned around in the end, having to tow to the pit lane due to the damage picked up. And we subsequently had what was this moment between Charlie Stoffard and what was Owen Seward. We look back from the rear of the team at KXR car, and well, brilliant move around the outside. It's going to cut across very shortly. Oh, goodness me, and then tapped on what was the rear left quarter panel. We thought it might have been a tap to the rear, but Charlie Stoffard just been sent to the gravel there through being clipped on entry. I think both drivers trying to fight to line. Can we get a better camera angle of that? Yes, we can. Our cameramen have been working hard on that, and this was coming up the rise, and as they made the way through, the two of them very side by side, I think both fighting over similar position, and in the end, well, was there a tap, or was it Stoffard's rear just letting go there? Because there is a bump in the road at turn number 14. Well, that's anybody's guess. We're not going to get a better camera angle than that, but very fast and furious fight in there, and unfortunately ended up in tears of Charlie Stoffard, but Owen Seward able to survive that, as there's some rain on screen. I don't know if anybody else saw that. We briefly saw a little bit of rain as they made their way out to turn number 3. There it is again. So the rain is arriving here at Road America, and well, to keep in mind right now that with regards to the tyre compound, all the tyres are on dry tyres. You can see that on the timing towel there with what is the D in the black circle, albeit it might be a little bit minuscule, but we can promise you the fact that most drivers, if not all, on the dry tyre out there, but those on the wet tyre you will see will go to a blue circle, of which Jim Fox and Jan Osberg both on that tyre. Osberg, of course, having towed to the pits, will get the advantage of changing the tyres whilst the car's repaired. Meanwhile, Jim Fox has come into the pit lane quite recently from all the way down in what was 21st place in the Premier class, so therefore he's had a little bit of a tactical advantage. But meanwhile, whilst all this is playing out, well, we do look here to Ross Norsworthy battling with Wesley Van Rens again. The two Ferrari drivers fighting over 17th place, and that's going to be on the inside into turn number 5. Oh, contact there, and that's going to send Van Rens round. That's Christian Malaskov tapping the Evo Championship leader on the rear in the Renault Academy Porsche, and well, Darryl Williams sees an opportunity here to get involved, and this circuit's going to get slippery now. That's only going to make things harder between the drivers, as Malaskov will hold off Darryl Williams coming through turn number 7, but you'll know a bit of a cloud hangs over his head after that tap to the rear of Van Rens' car, and Van Rens' race now has been righted. I think he's been able to get it turned around at the cost of a lot of places. And we're speaking of a driver who had an absolutely difficult start today, him starting from the pit lane, Roald Turfkeur, who qualified quite well. Well, he's had to start all the way from the back of the field, and right now in the number 20 car, he's trying to pick his way past drivers one by one, albeit the Dutchman will find it a little bit difficult to pass Sean Clark here, given the wet surface, albeit Clark goes a bit deep, so in the end through the carousel, Turfkeur is going to go up the inside there and take the place for 5th place in the Evo class, making that easier than perhaps we expected it to. But I think Sean Clark struggling with a little grip, the slight struggle of grip levels there, and Tufkira right now hooked up and trying to keep that tyre temperature as much as possible. But as they brought onward, Sander Tabbers fighting with Ross Norsworthy, and I think Norsworthy trying to make another place here, and yes, he is trying to go for the places. He's trying to go for what is 17th, but these two still fighting. Tabbers in the end losing out by going deep at turn 13. That's going to be Christian Malaskov up on his inside to outside of 14th. Will gain the place down. Williams now tries to go for it. It's the Corvette driver is really struggling here, and Williams gets ahead everybody into the pit lane, and well, is anybody going to dare to stay out is the question, and the answer is yes. Peter Duke stays out, as does Owen Stewart, who takes the lead of the Evo class, and we've also got Rob McKee, Pete Piver, James Pallett, Danny Veer, and also Denny Ploger. They've all decided they're going to stay out. Wesley Van Rens is also out there, whereas the rest of the field is all leaping onto the wet tyres. So it's going to be a splitting tyre strategy, and we can understand why, because the rain right now, it's expected to be light. We've got some sunshine as well, so therefore, is this rain going to be enough to activate the wet tyre and bring it into a comfortable operating window? Because the thing with the wet tyre, as we do see a change of position, or is it going to be, is that Starsmore coming out behind Martin Koog as the Dutchman moves ahead? And remember, Koog has yet to take a pit stop. He's on the dry tyre still. Remember, with regards to the dry tyre, it's a slick tyre. There's no tread on it. So the problem with a dry tyre is it can't displace water and therefore actually make contact with the tarmac. Essentially, the tyre will aquaplane or just float over the top of the water, and it will just lead to the car sliding. If there's enough water, that is, that's when that happens. Meanwhile, the wet tyre, it has tread like you'd see on a road tyre, just to a bridge thing. And the idea is that you want to use that tread to displace water, but if there's not enough water around for the wet tyre to be cooled, then the problem is you very quickly burn away that tread, and in doing so, what you end up doing is you turn it into a slick tyre that's piping hot. But meanwhile, speaking of coming in hot, that's going to be contact between Croft and Miller. Grant Miller up the inside. They're going a little bit deep on cold, wet tyres. Croft doing the same as well. These two practically came in together, and as they make the way in towards turn number 6, well, Miller's going to go deep. Croft is very eager to get back ahead. Miller struggling, it would seem, to get the car stopped under braking that Ford Mustang, and well, right now Miller falling all the way to 6th place in the Evo class as they come down in towards turn number 8, and Croft following them through. But this is a strategic gamble they've all played into, and well, as they make the way on out, I believe we've had a couple of instances for drivers out there, and well, a lot of gravel being kicked up there out towards the carousel. It's going to be Croft up the inside there, and Miller in the end having to let that place go. Croft getting the tyres switched on, whereas the Ford Mustang driver really struggling. But in terms of wet tyre struggles or dry tyre struggles, oh my goodness, what on earth has happened there? We've got multiple drivers off, and well, we've taken a look to the scenic view there. I think our cameras have slightly glitched, and well, I'll try and find out what's happened, but I believe multiple drivers were off there going into the kink. And well, meanwhile, John Ludbrook is ahead of Nick Stubb, makes his way on around Nick Stubb as they come out of Canada corner and up the rise into turn number 13. But it's been an absolute shuffle in the field. Duke, Stewart, McKee, Pallett, Piver, Veer and Ploger are all in the pit lane as I look at my contact window. They're the ones who gambled staying out for at least another lap on their current compound, and we'll have to see where it's going to shape things up, because in theory Ricardo Luiz Pereira will retake the lead of this race, because Peter Duke is still in the pit lane having the tyres changed at the moment. There you can see for a brief moment, you'll see him on the left hand side of your picture as we'll see Luiz Pereira make his way on through. Duke's still being serviced, and in fact now he's leaving his pit box, so coming in one lap later has not worked out for those who went for the gamble, and Luiz Pereira right now, if anything, has gained a massive amount of time, and Peter Duke has been pushed all the way down to 5th place, as we're going to see Nick Stubb go around the outside there to confirm the fact, albeit I think Duke's going to try and come back here down into turn number 3, but Scott Kostrich is going to have other ideas. Kostrich, the Scots there, the Scotsman trying to make a move, but the Kame GP2 Porsche driver, well, in the end, he's not going to get the move into 3, but he'll get an opportunity here coming down towards 5, because Duke went deep, given the fact he's on cold, wet tyres, and therefore he hasn't got the grip levels at the moment, so this is a prime lap to try and make the attack as they head onwards towards the braking zone. But right now it looks like that Acura's fast on the straights, and therefore Kostrich having to settle back in, but no, he's going to have to try and put the momentum in this battle, because if he doesn't, and if Duke can get himself up to temperature, you see Duke's really struggling there, goes very deep at turn number 5, practically almost wanders off the circuit. Well, the point being that once he's got up to temperature, and then Kostrich may not have another golden opportunity to try and get himself ahead and prove to be a bit of a thorn in the DDK Racing Team driver's side in the battle of the championship. But from then we look to Menno Blum, who takes a bit too much curb down, settles the car, and the Ferrari driver has to catch it before it goes too wide. That's feeling the wet as well. As those curbs get wetter, they become a lot slipperier, because remember, they're not tarmac. They are slightly different in terms of their material. They offer less grip, and the water stands on the curves as Blum goes a bit deep there at 6, just about catches the car in time. And whilst all that's happened, Mathew Croft has gone around. That's on the exit of turn number 8. Well, Croft, who was running in the fight for what would be the top 5 of the overall standings, and also in the Premier class, where it's all gone backwards for him. He's dropped down to 8th place, and Grant Miller, who was ahead of him, has now opened up a bit of a gap to 4 seconds, and Owen Seward is not too far behind them. So it's all chop and change right now between our drivers. Further down the order, James Bostock, who after what was that contact we saw earlier on, sent him all the way down to the back of the field. Well, he's trying to pick his way back up through the field right now. Is he going to be able to do so? And the answer is he'll take another place. There's Wesley Van Rens, goes very deep, as does to the bottom of the camera Sander Tabbers. They're all struggling out there. Edel Chowdhury's gone round. That's on the exit of the King, and that, not the King, that's on the exit of the Carousel, I should correct myself. And the number 5 driver here, well, right now just trying to get the Verano Academy McLaren turned, but the thing is trying to turn it. Oh my goodness, and that's Van Rens going sideways there, and he's going to make contact. The two come together, and Chowdhury was just waiting to get the car turned around. Well, right now, that is a turnaround, and not a positive one, as Van Rens loses his front bumper, and I wouldn't be surprised if both drivers have got to come into the pit lane shortly. And I think that's just Van Rens trying to carry too much speed at the Carousel, and the water not allowing him. I think a lot of drivers here struggling in these wet conditions, and therefore it is really confounding them. It's going to be a game of survival here, just as much as it's going to be about who's the fastest, as Jim Fox has got Dale Williams hunting in from behind, the Super GP2 driver who was the previous race winner. Well, right now, he's going to be trying to hold on as long as he can. He's holding on to 15th place, overall 13th place in the Premier class. But I think it's going to be easier said than done, because that Mercedes right now is absolutely flying behind him on the straights. But he looks like he's put himself enough of a gap to feel safe, at least this time around. Albeit Williams is taking a bit of a peek down towards turn 1. That will also help him lose the spray and give him better sight. He's going to go for it, is Williams. But in the end, oh my goodness, there's contact between the two of them. I think Williams tried to go all in on the brakes there on that inside line. I think while the front right tyres might have just touched the white painted line, and it's just sent the Mercedes onwards. Or in the end, Williams has gone around, and meanwhile Fox has been able to carry on. But I can imagine both drivers have damaged their cars, and that's going to be frustrating for the pair of them. As meanwhile, Peter Duke making a move there on Scott Kostrich to get back ahead. So Duke and Kostrich right now absolutely locking horns here as they come down for turn number 7 in towards 8, and Kostrich on the attack as they roar the way in towards the braking. So we ride on board here with Kostrich, and this game, oh my goodness, as soon as we do, that's onto the barrier and straight across the road. Look how my GP2 Porsche driver hits a puddle somewhere out there on circuit, and the car goes onwards. And well, Peter Duke I think got caught up in that, or did he? I'm not quite sure. But Kostrich's car in the end having to be towed to the pits, and well, as it does so, from one moment to another moment, it seems as though right now anybody could fall to the rain here at Road America. It's not going to be anyone's race until they see that checker flag, but the problem is that checker flag is a long way away as Grant Miller goes round here from the lead of the Evo class, and that's going to release Owen Seward into lead now, albeit Grant Miller will know that it's going to be one of those mistakes that he'll have to learn from. And well, Owen Seward right now will surely recognise the fact that he's leading, and he doesn't need to make any mistakes at this point onwards, because so many people are dropping by the wayside here and making errors as the rain has stopped falling as well. This is absolutely brewing to be a nightmare here, because right now everyone's on the wet tyre. But the problem is, if no more rain falls and time goes on, as Peter Duke I think was collected in what was that moment with Scott Kostrich, because he's struggling right now as the DDK Racing Team driver. Well, the idea is here it's going to be a game of who's going to be brave enough to switch back to the dries as no more rain falls, and well, that could unlock a lot of race time, as there's contact there between Danny Weir and Jim Fox, the two coming together as we look from one side of the circuit to the other. It's absolute pandemonium here. And well, meanwhile, some drivers who qualified quite poorly, such as Pete Piver, who started all the way down 22nd, he now finds himself all the way up in 10th place and very quickly charged into the top 10 overall, or what is in terms of class position, 8th place in the Premier class. They make their way down the start finish straight. Well, I can't quite tell you what's going to happen next as more rain starts to fall towards the back end of the circuit. And well, Ross Norsworthy here made his way on through down the start finish straight. Well, as they roar the way onwards, we've got more rain down the start finish as well. In towards turn 1 they go, and the what is the battle of the McLaren versus the Ferrari. Well, the Ferrari's going to win that battle in terms of straight line speed eventually, but Piver there backing off, braking very on the inside line. I think recognising the fact there's nowhere near as much grip on the inside as there is on the outside into turn 1. The water seems to pull on the run of that inside line, and that's why a few drivers have come unstuck there previously. But I think we need to have a few replays of what's happened over the last few laps, and well, can we get the replays? That's the question, as Andrew Montini is struggling on right now. I think that's a car that's crabbing, i.e. the suspension's collapsed and it's not pointing straight. That front right in particular, front left in your picture, now front right as the camera appears backside onto us. I think there's major suspension damage there for Montini, and he's got to try and survive a whole lap side by side here with Denny Plurger. They're both in wounded cars. Coming up behind is Jim Fox, who's got a wounded rear end on that Porsche 992, and right now you've got 3 drivers who are all just trying to survive lap after lap here to get to the pit lane and get their cars repaired. Well, as they make the way on down, hopefully they're able to make it into the pits, because we don't want to see them retire from the race. And well, meanwhile, whilst all that's happening, Christoph Starsmore here as he makes his way into the kink. He's got Nick Stubb right behind him, and Stubb looking left, right and centre, and Stubb here's going to have the momentum coming down to Canada Corner. Can he go all the way to the inside into the right hand? And the answer is yes, he can. He clears Starsmore before they get to the braking zone. Starsmore doesn't want to be a part of this, and I think Starsmore respecting the fact that right now he just wants to keep it together as Ludbrook goes straight on, goes onto the brakes, and into wet gravel. It's only going to go one way, goes to the tyre barrier. So John Ludbrook, who was making his way out through the field, well, it's all gone back to the start for what is the number 114 driver, and well, he's going to be going to the pit lane to get repaired because he's missing a rear wing, he's missing a front bumper. That car's missing all the air it needs to be able to keep down on the tarmac. Owen Seward's just going to go around the outside of him here very, very carefully, Seward, and he's got to, given the fact that so many drivers are losing it currently. And whilst all this is happening, Rob Gregg, who started all the way down from 7th in the Evo class and was 26th overall, he suddenly finds himself up into 3rd place in Evo class in what is 16th place overall as they make the way through. It literally is right now unpredictable. Grant Miller, meanwhile, in the wounded Mustang, is still trying to soldier on here. The best part of 28 seconds off Owen Stewart, the class leader, and he's been caught up very quickly by Rob Gregg. You'll see Gregg in the rear of the picture potentially shortly. In fact, not this time around, but should that gap continue to close up, he won't be too far behind out of camera shot. And as they come in towards turn number 14, there is Rob Gregg. You briefly saw him. That's how quickly Grant Miller's been caught up here, as an almost big sideways moment for what was Danny Veer just in front. Well, all of our drivers right now still trying to combat these conditions, and well, it looks as though so far those who are able to combat them are making huge strides, and it's all about just keeping your cool. And as they head in towards turn 1, a bit further up the road, Rob McKee, who's in at 10th place overall. As we switch the timing tower back to that, Andrew Montina's looking at my Conti roof windows into the pits repair work. So he has been able to get the 115 all the way round to that. Acura's made it back to the pit lane for what will be quick repairs. And was the tries head onwards. A big slide there from McKee as he tried to get the power down out of turn number 3. That power proving very difficult to deploy, even though the engine is behind the driver. So it's in the ideal position for these conditions. But still, you've got to be smart, and also you've got to turn up the traction control and the end-stop braking system. They'll have wet modes, they'll have dry modes, and right now they'll certainly want to be in a wet mode as they come down into the braking zone for turn number 5. And you see Pallet looking left, looking right, but knowing if he wants to make the move, he's got to be smart where he places the car. McKee here going defensive on the inside into turn number 6. Pallet in the end backing off, recognising there's only really one line through these corners. As you can see, that standing water forming on the outside of the circuit and the exit at turn number 6, and nobody will want to go to that exit curb, otherwise it's going to send them all the way round and then some. But Pallet and Bostock close, and Pallet looking to the outside here on McKee. He's going to go all in, or is he? No, he's not, as he cuts back the inside, and some standing water sends James Pallet to the grass. He gets it just about stopped in the nick of time before collecting what would have been McKee or Bostock on the rejoin. So brilliant control there from Pallet, and also awareness of Bostock and McKee just to take it very sensitively through the corner, give all the space they could on the exit. But right now, McKee goes from one attacker to another as we ride aboard and look back from the rear of the 117 DXT Motorsports McLaren, and that is none other than James Bostock for Carme GP2 Porsche, who's on the attack. And in the end, McKee goes through the king. He absolutely attacks it. He rides onto the exit curb there, survives it, has to lift off all the throttle to do so. And here comes Bostock. He's going to go around the outside to the inside here as they come through the curvature of the back straight in towards Canada Corner. And now Bostock's just got to get stopped. All he's got to do is get the brakes on nice and early. He does that, and James Bostock moves up into 10th place as they come on out of Canada. And well, McKee all over the back of him, but in the end not able to close up anymore and falling backwards. Further back, meanwhile, in the fight for his 17th place overall, that's going to be Sander Tabbers around the outside of a wounded Jim Fox. As Tabbers in the end goes deep, he goes a bit deeper and ends up going into the gravel trap, and now makes his way out there. He's going to rejoin across a very slippery curb, so he has to be very sensitive on the throttles. That's going to lose him. Was the place he gained plus an extra 2, with Craig Tillerson and Dale Williams making their way through. And Craig Tillerson, who was all the way at the back of the field, has made his way all the way up into 18th place, 15th in the Premier class, but still the Corvette driver here making some good progress. He makes his way down the start finish straight for what will be the 15th time of asking. Onto lap number 16 he'll go, with Dale Williams looking to battle him here. It will be the battle of the V8, one in the rear of the car, one at the front, and right now Dale Williams with the Mercedes AMG V8 in the front of it seems to be outpowering the Corvette of Tillerson as they come down towards turn 1. He's on that inside line, got to be careful of the braking here. We've seen many a driver lose it on that inside line, but not Dale Williams. He knows to brake nice and early, gets the car stopped. Tillerson will try and come back at him here down in towards turn number 3. 3, but has he got enough leverage? And the answer is no, he hasn't, and he'll try and put the pressure on for the exit of 3 in the run down towards 5. As you can see, Williams goes a bit deep, and that's going to enable Tillotson to try and look for the counter-attack here as they roll on through, and well, it's going to be practically side by side between the two of them as they make their way onwards. A clear space in front from that nose camera view. All the way down they go then towards what will be turn 5. Tillotson on the outside backs off immediately in towards that braking zone, knowing he can't really force it around the outside. There's too much water. You can see the water in the pictures towards that curb, and just decides to go at line astern for now, and Williams really dictating the race between them. But as they head up the hill, well, here comes Sander Tabbers in the battle of the Corvettes. He's going to try and go around the outside of turn number 6. Well, it's going to be brave here from Tabbers if he can get it to stop in time. He jars about. And Tillotson in the end puts the car in the middle of the road to force Tabbers to have to back off without otherwise having to run the risk of running onto the exit curb. It's a good placement from Tillotson. And as they head in towards turn 8, well, they stay as they were for now. Tillotson going very defensive here and really trying to stop the charge, as that is a car off, and I believe that is the car Mark Wesley having to tow to the pit. So Wesley, who was a lap down on these drivers, having to make his way back to the pit lane, I think, for some damage picked up. But whilst all this has been happening, well, we do have some replays that we do need to give you with regards to some of the instances, some of the highlights of where the wet weather has really sabotaged the races, some drivers. And starting off, I do believe, with what was that big moment for Grant Miller back on laps 13 and 14, and this is how it all started for Grant Miller when the rain came on in. And well, you'll see this is when he was leading in the Evo class, coming out of the carousel, tight inside line, takes a bit of curb, and that transfers enough of the weight in an unsettled way and sends it around into the barrier. And for Grant Miller, well, a very small mistake proved to be extremely costly, and Owen Stewart just romping his way on past. We also did have a big moment for what was, I believe, Sean Clark, and this was on lap number 13 as well. And well, Sean Clark making his way on down here into the braking zone. In front of him was Wesley Van Rens as they headed in towards the corner. In the end, the car spikes and slides under braking, and thankfully the DXT Motorsports tried to avoid Wesley Van Rens and just able to run to the gravel and then carry on his merry way. We also had for Rob McKee on that lap, it all went a bit wrong for the DXT Motorsports McLaren driver. And explain why the bonnet is hanging upwards, and that was a big slide coming out of the kink, and in the end can't get it stopped in time and into the barrier, and thankfully making it a 2-for-1 tap to the barrier and able to get the car pointed back in the right direction, but not the way you wanted it to go whatsoever. And well, then only moments afterwards, this was Jim Fox on his way on down and through with what was, I believe, behind Danny Veer, and the two of them coming into contact with each other, and we did catch that contact between the two of them subsequently after, and that explains their story. And well, from them we also had a moment for what was John Ludbrook on lap number 14, and this was coming down in towards the Canada corner, and I think we did catch this at the time as he was watching the battle going on there between Nick Stubb and what was none other than Christopher Starsmore, and Ludbrook just braking too late, the car snaking away from him with some standing water and finding its way into the gravel trap there and practically out of the race. But with that, let's come back to your live pictures. We've still got plenty of time to go, the best part of 20 minutes and then some, as that is a rejoin in McLaren. And well, as we say hello to Titans Endurance Racing there. Hope you're doing well, Titans. And well, Rob McKee fighting with Pete Piver. That was Piver rejoining on the exit of what was turn number 8, and will Piver right now just trying to stem at the tide. Always McKee going around the outside, and McKee, despite the damage on the front end of McLaren, he's carrying on. He's going to take the place of a Piver, and now can Pallett find a way through as well, because James Pallett has made a lot of progress in the wet. He's come a long way out the field from what was a 22nd place start, as he heads onwards towards what is the Canada corner. In fact, 23rd place start. Let's get that correct. Well, right now it's going to be a battle on the outside versus Piver, and he'll get it there as meanwhile Danny Veer queues up behind and will veer in at the number 195. Can't quite find a way through, as I believe we've had what is Pallett there take a long excursion into the gravel, sending carrying too much speed into the corner off camera, and rejoins just before making a haste to the barrier. So therefore things will calm down for them. Ross Nordsworthy meanwhile in the Ferrari. We've got James Bostock right behind him. James Bostock, he may not be the fastest driver in the dry, but in the wet, the 166 Porsche driver is absolutely nailing these laps right now as he heads down the start-finish straight. He's going to try and look for a potential move here versus what will be Norsworthy. Can he go for it into turn 1? He's going to think about it, but then at the end decides against it, seeing that Norsworthy going defensive off-centre to the outside of the road. So essentially saying to Bostock, look, you can go for it, but I'm going to force you to drive on a massive wet patch. And Bostock, not silly about it, decides, okay, you know what, you're playing it defensively, and I'm not going to get myself into any risk of potentially spinning out or going long under braking. But as they make the way onwards, well, in front of them, that's Owen Seward, the leader of the Evo class, the man who's picked up all the places where everybody else has fallen so far. And, well, I won't put too much praise on him too highly for the risk of the commentator's curse, as it does seem to happen every so often. But as they make the way down to the braking zone, and our overlay just has a bit of a moment, and it seems to be having a little bit of a temperamental moment. Apologies for that, ladies and gentlemen. We will try and get that technical issue fixed when we can. Right now, Owen Seward just keeping his head to the ground and pushing onwards, running 7th place overall, 1st place in Evo. But what's happening elsewhere in Evo? Well, this is Rob Gregg, who has found himself into 2nd place in Evo class ahead of Grant Miller. And well, these two running quite close together. Sander Tabbers, meanwhile, battling here in the Premier class of 14th ahead of Jim Fox, and then goes around the outside. Does he get it stopped in time? We saw a big snake slide there as he made his way through, and the answer is yes, he does get it stopped. Jim Fox, meanwhile, I think having a bit of a moment to the apex of what was turn number 5. I think the car ended up on the grass now to rejoin, so losing places to Roll Turfcure, also to Craig Tillerson and Jan Nagy. So it does look as though Jim Fox's race is going from good to bad to worse. But whilst all that's happening, Mathew Croft now picks his way out the inside and Nick Stubb. I think Stubbs had a bit of a moan at turn number 13 because he suddenly lost all the gap he had over Croft, and Croft has moved into 2nd here as they make the way across that timeline. Meanwhile, Ricardo Luiz Pereira is 9 seconds up the road and putting in the laps, putting in consistent laps. Mathew Croft is the fastest driver out on circuit right now. In fact, no, let me correct myself. He's the 2nd fastest driver out on circuit. The fastest driver right now is James Bostock out there, who's in 8th place in Premier and 9th place overall. Mathew Croft is a couple of attempts slower, but both of them are lapping in the 27s. Everybody else is lapping in the 28s to 29s. And well, if this continues, could we see Croft, could we see Bostock, both of them come through the field here and make it on to what would be victory, if not the podium? Well, Croft is already in the podium places. And well, can he go chasing down the victory off of Ricardo Luiz Pereira? If he can, that would be an absolutely sensational drive. As we do see a change of place a bit further back, Pete Piver being passed there by James Pallett around the outside of turn number 14. But in terms of that story as to what happened, between the combination of Mathew Croft and Nick Stubb, we need to take a look back at a replay of that, and thankfully we've got a replay on cue, and this is how Mathew Croft found P2 off of Nick Stubb. So this was coming into turn number 14, and Stubb just having a slow run there. No visible sign of a mistake. Or was that? Oh, goodness me, yes, there was a big moment there from Nick Stubb. I think just catching what some standing water and breaking into turn 14 with also the bump in the road, and Croft just able to seize the opportunity there, and will roaring onwards right now as he makes his way on further into this race. We return to your live racing, and well, as we do, one thing we also need to get a view of is what happened to Peter Duke a bit earlier on, because he did fall a long way down the order. In fact, he had to come into the pit lane due to some damage picked up, we believe, is what happened to Peter Duke. Can we get a view of it? And the answer is no, we don't have a replay available to us, but in fact, yes, we do. It was the damage between himself and Scott Kostrich, which we did have with that damage, and I think we will be able to get the replay here. This was back on lap number 13, and we promised you we'd get a replay of this, and this was in the rundown in towards what was turn number 3 as the rain stopped falling for a moment and it came back. So it was Kostrich and Duke fighting each other, and well, they battled too wide. They come out of turn number 3, no love lost between the two of them, and as they made the way down, Duke was not too pleased with the way that pass was made, and then subsequently I believe we're going to see what is the second half of this battle at turns 7 and 8. Or are we? Yes, we are. And this was where it all went wrong for Scott Kostrich on lap number 13 as well. Under braking, the car snaps, comes across, bounces off of the wall, and in the end it goes onto the path of Peter Duke. We couldn't see that on the onboard at the time when we were riding on board with him, but that explains the story of how the two had to come in together, and they both end up a long way down the order. As meanwhile, come back to your live pictures and just in time, because Rob McKee trying to keep what is James Pallett behind him as they make the way across the timeline. Oh, goodness me, I'm not quite sure what's happened there, ladies and gents. We've briefly lost everybody. Can we get everyone back? And it looks as though we may have lost everyone for a brief moment. I'm not quite sure if there's a connectivity issue. We will try and get this back as quickly as we can. We do apologise. There seems to be a connectivity issue. And, well, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Apologies. Something did seem to go wrong. And we are trying to get this broadcast back. We'll be back very shortly. We are going to get these technical issues resolved. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back within the next 2 to 3 minutes. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. It does appear that the iRacing service has gone down. Either it's been involved in some sort of unexpected technical issue or it's gone down for maintenance. We're not quite sure, but what we're going to do in the meantime is we are going to leave you with some pictures of the race start. And until we find out further, we are waiting for an update with regards to what is going to happen in order for us to come back to the racing. We did have approximately what was 20 minutes or so of racing to go, and I do see the message there from Jordan Smith who we say hello to with regards to iRacing is down for maintenance and thinking that the race was potentially cancelled from today. And we say hello to Stephen Wilkinson who was cheering on Simcast Racing, and also we say hello to the man and the legend Andy Dawson who saying Matthew is cooking tonight with regards to Mathew Croft, and also to Sherlock Ho who says go Ellis Racing. So we're just going to leave you with these pictures, ladies and gentlemen, of what is the opening few laps of the race, and when we do get clarification as to what happened, or what is going to happen I should say, with regards to are we going to get a restart, will the race be called there, what was 44.5 minutes distance, or the best part I do believe of what would have been at that point 20 or 21 laps turned, we will update you as soon as we can. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, well, we are still waiting for an official word from the administrators. How what we're going to do in the meantime, because given the fact that a lot of our drivers are taking a breather and out their cars at the moment, we have offered any of our drivers who are willing to potentially drop in for what it is an interview whilst they do have a bit of a breather. So as soon as we do get a word from any of our drivers, we will bring some in to have a chat with them. But we are still waiting for an official word from the admin team as to what is going to happen with regards to potential race restart or whether we will call the distance there. But we have recently just been informed that iRacing is down for official maintenance, so therefore we might be looking at a situation whereby this is going to be a suspension to the race. But again, we're not going to say what exactly is going to happen until we find out any further. But what we can do in the meantime is grab a word from one of our Evo stars, and we're going to be grabbing it from this man, and it will be Grant Miller, who we're going to get a word from in the what is the interview room whilst we are waiting. And well, as we say hello to now, good evening to you, Grant. And well, we've had a bit of an unsuspected pause to the racing, and something tells me after it was all going so well in the dry and then going into a bit of difficulty in the wet, you might be grateful for a little bit of a pause.
Yeah, let's not go back on the wet. Quali was going wet, dry race was going wet. My practice in wet was okay, but this is what I was practicing on. I think I hit the same manhole cover twice and skewered into the barriers. So, and then I thought I had disconnected. I because all the cars disappeared off the map and all the timing sheet went black, and I like, oh, don't tell me it's just me out here now. And it ended, and I still saw other cars going around the track, and I thought, right, don't know what that means. So yeah, I think we're all just sitting here waiting on subsection X paragraph who knows what are we doing .com.
Oh, indeed. I think it's going to be a little bit of a waiting game whilst we do wait. Like you say, the admins are going to be furiously whipping out the rule book and blowing off the dust as to what exactly happens in these exceptional circumstances. But flip side of the coin, of course, is let's talk about some positives. We got to see some great performances for yourself, not just in qualifying, but also battling up and down the running order, even in the wet. It looks as though, well, at least at the start of the race, you just waited all the premiers out the way and then was just focusing on running your race.
Yeah, so it's double points. So all I'm looking for is the Evo drivers. I'm not really caring about the guys in front of me. I'm just trying to make sure that I get maximum points for this class. And I was actually quite surprised at the pace. I had decent quali pace, but I was trying for the last couple of days to figure out, do I run a wet race, a dry race, a dry with wets, a wet setup on dries to change to wets? Absolute no idea what was going to happen. We knew the rain was coming, obviously, due to the forecast. And I thought, right, if I get far enough up ahead, if I can keep the same sort of pace as the guys in front, then I've just got to literally hold on for the wet stuff coming, because I absolutely hate that. And it proved right. I was rubbish, and I fell off twice on successive laps at the same point. So I'm really just hoping that we go back to a nice sort of 20-minute dry race. Only red cars are allowed, and I'll be happy.
Oh, goodness me. I love that, Grant. I think many of what your supporters would love to see that as well, but we'll wait and see what happens. But just before we do let you go, I'd appreciate you jumping in quickly. I mean, right. We've seen quite a few drivers make some great progress today. I mean, we saw Steve Rubino. He figured out how to put the fuel in the car and enjoyed a bit of battling. Not to besmirch him, but seeing him up there in the Ford Mustang. And also Owen Seward, and what was, I do believe, in the dry at least, a very fast-charging McLaren and Charlie Stoffard. Two drivers coming up quickly. Are you worried about them? Because they looked ferociously fast.
They were very quick. And I don't know where they've been, if I've just missed them in the previous races or what's happened. But, wow, I looked at the times, I was like, who's that? And they're right on you. And then I think that one of the guys was 2 places behind me, and I could just watch the times closing, and I thought, oh, this is, I don't know, do I let him go, do I not let him go? And then the rain came. It actually came a bit early. I was kind of expecting it about 25 minutes into the race. I think it came at about 20 minutes into the race. But yeah, it's going to be a tight season for the Evos, that's for sure. And it's good to see. It's good to see that there's a lot of good competition out there as well that I'm able to find. I've not ever been on this sort of pace or in this sort of league, so it's great to have people to race against at this speed.
Oh, 100%. And just one final thought before we do let you go. When we interviewed you after Mugello last time at your double victory, you were saying about the time you'd had to practice at Mugello and how it went, and that you were sort of going into rounds now where you might not have as much knowledge or practice. But you put it on pole at Road America. I mean, you may not have had as much time to practice this circuit, but it's definitely a circuit that suits you.
Well, unemployment has its benefits. I'll just say that. Lots of free time while I'm waiting on a job coming in, but a lot of practice. The downside is how much you practice in the dry and how much you practice in the wet. And I plumbed on the dry stuff, hoping that I could at least get some sort of compromise when the rain came. And I was doing decent times in the wet in practice. And then I figured out I was actually on the wrong rain, like the rain simulation. I had very light rain, not light rain, so that was all false hopes. But it's the same for everybody. You've just got to keep chipping away at it, and I'll just need to keep plugging away at the practice. It's obviously paying off, but yeah, that'll all change if I get a job soon. Please, any jobs out there?
Well, Grant, whilst you are waiting for a job, we have to say you're doing a great job out on the virtual circuit, and we look forward to plenty more, but we'll leave it there for now, and either we'll see you out on circuit again shortly, depending on what the admins decide, or we may see you once again in a week's time.
Yeah, red cars for race 3 only, please. Good. Speak soon.
Catch you soon, Grant.
Cheers, bye.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from Grant Miller, a very happy Grant Miller. He's always wonderful to talk to, no doubt about it, and making some great progress in the drive, but then, as he mentioned, ending up making the same mistake on 2 successive laps to put himself all the way down the order with the rain coming too soon. But meanwhile, let's talk to a man for whom the rain, it would seem, could not come soon enough, as he does join me now, and this is none other than Mathew Croft. And Mathew, I get the feeling right now, as soon as we saw the race come to a stop, you're probably screaming, why can't it go on? Because the pace you're showing in the wet, I mean, it's sensational.
I wasn't best pleased, I'm not going to lie. As soon as everything went black and all the cars disappeared, I was like, please God, no. And then it kicked everyone out. I was like, oh my God, I've worked so hard for this. To be fair, I did a risky manoeuvre. My drives I was on pace, but the 2 guys in front were absolutely flying away. So I thought, I have to change something. So I put a bit of wing in, a couple of degrees of wing in. Came in for wets, and obviously putting that wing in cost me about 10 seconds in the pits, which put me down to 12th or something like that. And I was like, this might be the worst decision I've done. And then suddenly I'm gaining places, and I was like, okay, this is sticking. Well, I mean, sticking is a rough term to say in this weather. It wasn't exactly like glue, but yeah, it was working for me. And I think I was gaining second to second half a lap on P1, and then and it was just 20 minutes left, and I was like, okay, if it's second to second half, 20 seconds, he's only 6 seconds in front. I got a good chance here coming P1, and then the worst happened.
Well, sometimes these things happen. They're completely out of your control, and you've got to roll with it. But even if the worst does come to the worst, and we're not quite sure what the admins are going to decide yet, it's definitely a sign that you might be considered a bit of a rain maestro, to say at the least. And it looks as though with this Porsche 992, you're fast in the dry with it, but in the wet, you just seem to be in a completely different world. Has that been something that's come naturally to you, or is it something you've had to work on for quite a bit of time?
If I'm honest, it's like it just appeared, because I've not been doing this for long. I've been doing this since November, December last year. So, but I did tell you last interview we did last week. I said, look, I did pretty well in the rain, and look at that, I did it again. And I don't know why. I'm not cautious in the dry. That's my problem. Is I'm a bit too heavy-handed on the brakes. But as soon as it gets wet, I become Mr. Cautious, and I can do those lap times. I don't know how, don't know why, but it's probably because I'm English and it rains all the time, I guess, and I'm used to driving in the rain. But yeah, good, but I know P2's still a good place.
Almost definitely. And coming into this round as well, you were 6th in the championship ahead of tonight. And let's say, hypothetically, you do take the P2 away, and whether it's full points or a portion of points, it's going to move you into the top 5. There's no doubt about that. It feels as though the momentum's now coming in the championship. Are you feeling that as well, that today it's been going very well, but Divine Intervention's got in the way? But if Divine Intervention doesn't get in the way next week, that this is now your championship to chase?
I would have thought, I think so, yeah. I mean, last week we spoke about Watkins Glen was an absolute shambles for me because of accidents and things like that. I think if I'd have performed there, I think this would be a very different conversation. I think I'd have been, it's not going to be big-headed here, top 3, easily. But, things came to things, and, things came to things again today. And so if everything goes as planned, then next week I'm hoping for top 3, although Kota is a horrendous track that I don't deal with very well, so I could be having a very different conversation. But you can't say things are going to happen, can we? But we can just try.
No, that's true. All you can do is try. And speaking of trying on a wider level, coming into today as well, 2 of the Axis Sim Sports teams inside the top 5 in the Teams Championship. Z-Axis leading the way of the 3 teams in the top 10. I think in 3rd place in the Championship, if my memory serves correctly. It's looking to be a good season for the team as a whole.
Yeah. I mean, Max missed out this race this week because work commitments, which was a shame because he's doing really well over in the group below. Andre I think he had a really good start this race, and I think he struggled a little bit, but he was coming back on pace. So, the team's got Z-Axis got some good team members and good pace, and we keep finishing near the top. And you'd have to win every single race. If 3 of us can come in the top 5 or whatever every time, then it's just consistency, and then throughout the season, hopefully by the end we might grab a trophy for the team. Would be nice.
Oh, indeed, that would be nice. But with that, Mathew, going to leave it there for now. But well done on the drive, no doubt about it. We'll wait and see what's going to happen, but we'll let you get back to the team. And whether it's more racing today, alternatively, we carry on the story in a week's time, we will see you back out on track soon.
Yeah, no problem. Well, if it does restart, then if this just put me in P1, that'd be nice.
I'll see if I can slip a word to the admin team. I've got to put all the
All
red
right, thanks,
cars on the
fella.
grid. Now I've got to put you in P1. What's going to be on the
Yes,
shopping
please.
list next?
Wow. I'll ask next week when I win.
Brilliant. We'll speak to you
All
soon.
right. Cheers, fella. Bye-bye.
So here there, ladies and gentlemen, from an absolutely gutted Mathew Croft with a very, very fast charge in the wet. And really talking about there in the fact that in the dry seems to be a little bit hot-headed, perhaps not as calm and sensible as you'd like to be, but in the wet really switches on the smart stuff and chasing after what is those results, but also making sure not to push it too hard. And, well, he's absolutely bang on the money, was gaining 1.5 seconds on average a lap chasing after the race leader. If we had had the remainder of that race, there's no question about it. If that pace had continued, he would have had, doing the mathematics in my head, he would have had the best part of 6 to 7 minutes, so 2 to 3 laps, perhaps even 4 laps, to really try and take that lead and just run away with it if he could pass Ricardo, Luiz, Pereira. But still, that's a big what if, and sometimes divine intervention gets in the way. Many of you may remember, of course, what was, my memory serves me correctly, the 2008 Formula 1 Malaysian Grand Prix, where divine intervention got in the way and the weather saw the race suspended and hand the win to Jenson Button. It's a similar situation here. We've had the race suspended at the moment, but we don't know what's going to happen. But it's just one of those circumstances. But definitely, Mathew Croft is going to be somebody to watch out for now in that Premier class. But now coming to another one of our drivers, and we're going to be speaking to none other than Danny Veer, another Porsche 992 driver in what is, the Premier class. And speaking to DXT Motorsports Now driver as he joins me. Good evening to you, Danny. And well, what an absolutely back and forth race in the dry, different qualifying session, but making some good progress. Then the wet comes along. 1 minute you're making a lot of progress, and the next minute it ends up being in a bit of an altercation with Jim Fox. I don't think anybody knows which way your race was going this evening, not to be rude about it.
No, it's very up and down. I was struggling with the pace in the dry. I was looking forward to the wet running. Seem to be doing quite well in the wet running. But yeah, unfortunate with Jamie. I've watched it back, and it's a strange incident. Like, it's kind of, I'm going for a gap, he's going for the wet line, and we both broke at the same time. But then this coming together, it's really unfortunate. I'm sure he'll probably put a clip in if we are doing it. I'm not sure what's going to happen now with the race being suspended, but yeah, it's an unfortunate one. I didn't really want to have an incident with anyone particularly. But it was a good shame because I was, climbing back up. I got up back into P10, P9 actually, overtook Rob Mackay, my teammate, which was good. And then suddenly it all went black.
I mean, goodness, it must have been for you. Your jaw must have dropped to that point and thought to yourself, well, what's happened right now? Is it me? Is it everybody else? Who knows? And then suddenly you find out everyone's experienced it. It's sort of, we've still got 15 minutes to go. Come on.
Yeah, literally. I think one of the first guys that come on was Sean Clark. He went, are you guys still racing? I went, well, yeah, we're still going. And then suddenly, oh, hang on, I can't see them on track. Oh, no, no, we're going. And then, so yeah, lucky enough, because we're in a big group together, like Sean Clark, Rob Mackay, I think Ashley Brooks from Split A, Alex Boniface. We all kind of knew it was, the whole iRacing thing and not just one of us going out. But I thought it's one of them things. I played iRacing it's a great platform to be on. But yeah, occasionally we do get these little issues. So I'll take it from what the driving is normally.
Oh, indeed. But still, coming from the issues to what's some great racing for yourself. I mean, we always love to see the DXT Motorsports cars roll the way through, and today for yourself, no exception. It looks as though Road America, your Porsche, and yourself, a great combination, or at least we got to see some brilliant fighting between yourself and the likes of what was James Pallett and Sander Tabbers, as the three of you kept going back and forth. I think 1 minute you're over the back of James, the next minute Sanders over the back of you. We don't know which way to turn. Are you facing forward? Are you looking backwards? I mean, how do you balance that when you're in such a tight pack?
Well, yes, we had the benefit of, we know each other very well, the three of us. We come up from the Evo last season. Obviously, that was the season I won. I think Tabbers come third or fourth maybe, and I think even James up there as well. So we had a lot of battles last season on track. We know how each other races. We know where the respect is. And we know our weaknesses as well. So I know, for example, that James isn't very comfortable in the wet. James knows that I occasionally go in too deep. So we use that to our advantages, and it's a great battle to watch and a great battle to be involved in, because you just know you're against your nemesis, and he's going to give you as good as you can get, and it's brilliant to race with. So I can put my my life in their hands, kind of thing. I can trust them. I know exactly what they're going to do, and I know exactly they're going to give me plenty of racing room and racing respect, which is brilliant.
Oh, indeed, and that respect is what it's all about in the Evolution Sim Racing GT3 Championship, no doubt about it, and it just builds over time, like you say. And, well, if the race is paused today, if it is suspended, I should say, and we don't continue any further, looking ahead now, of course, we've got the Circuit of Americas in a week's time. It's a circuit which, it's a bit of a Marmite track. Some people love it, some people absolutely hate it, and then there's those in the middle. Where do you find yourself on it?
I've been a mixture throughout my time in ESR. The first time I raced it I was in the Audi and I hated it. Second time I raced it, I was in the Porsche and I loved it. So yeah, I'm in the loving zone at the moment. Hopefully, I know the track very well from my F1 racing days. But yeah, it's a great track. It's just it's one of them. It's like I say, it's a Marmite track. If you don't like the S's, you're gonna hate the track. Whereas the S's, if you can nail them and you can get them right, it feels so good to get it right. And it's just a good track. It's got everything that a track would need. It's got the tight corners. It's got the sweeping bends. It's got the long straight. Like it's almost like they've got a checklist and gone, yep, that's in there. Yep, that's in there. Yep, that's in there. What else we throw in there? Yep, we'll throw that in there as well. Like it's a great track, and for an American track as well, which is not famous for great F1 tracks, it's one of the best ones. It's brilliant.
Well, absolutely fair. I mean, it's an opinion which I'm going to nod my head and agree with you on, although I can suspect that some of our viewers right now might be inclined to disagree. But
yeah,
then again,
I can hear the hate mail coming in now.
Oh, brilliant. Well, with that, Danny, we're going to leave it there for now. But thank you for joining me for a quick interview. And well, unfortunate things have had to take a pause, but great to see the racing from yourself, where it was up or down the field or somewhere in between. And we look forward to more at the Circuit of the Americas, if not later this evening.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Well, I don't think it'll be in this evening by the looks of it. It most likely will be either postponed or just end it there. I'm not too sure. Last time we had a issue like this, they just ended it and just didn't do voided the race altogether. I'm not too sure now. We've been like 15 minutes to go, but we'll leave it to the admin gods. But yeah, if not, hopefully I'll get to talk to you again at Road America.
All right, I'll hold you to that one. But until then, have a great rest of your evening.
You too. Thank you.
So hearing there, ladies and gentlemen, from Danny Veer, the DXT Motorsports driver, who really, in his own words, didn't know which way and to look with regards to the batting. Indeed, over the entirety of the race distance before everything came to an abrupt pause. But talking a lot there as well, and perhaps one of the things we haven't really talked about since the start of this season is the respect between drivers and how a lot of these drivers have made their way into the GT3 Championship and have moved their way up the ranks together. Talking about, for example, battling with James Pallett and also was Sander Tabbers. The fact that all three drivers have come up from the Evo class to Premier. They know each other, they know how they race, they know how to get under each other's skin, everything. And that's what leads to such brilliant, respectful racing between them, because they know how hard they can push each other and how far they can go before they start to hit the limit, and they want to keep the racing respectful. And that is why we've had some absolutely brilliant racing between our drivers from start to finish, no doubt about it. And Danny, talking about there as well, what is the Circuit of the Americas? A circuit he really does enjoy, and well, we're looking forward to seeing whether he can deliver on the goods there and the promise at the Circuit of the Americas in a week's time. And well, it'd be great to see him absolutely give it his all, I should say. But with that, I'm just checking over with regards to the admins at the moment. I do have a bit of a direct view as to what's going on here, and we haven't had an official message at the moment come out, ladies and gentlemen. And well, I can definitely say to you, as I do see some more messages in the YouTube chat there, Katie Eames saying, given the time zones of some drivers, then surely there won't be any more racing tonight, which is gutting but understandable if that's the outcome. Again, we're just waiting for that official confirmation. There is a lot of back and forth between drivers and the admins at the moment as to what's going on. I think everyone right now, understandably, wanting to see that race to a close. And it was a very interesting time for the race to come to a pause as well. Practically almost 45 minutes complete, which would have been a very close point to what is completing at 75% of the race distance. But of course, the admins will take that into consideration before they do come to that final decision. As we just look back at some of the footage from some of our other drivers, including Craig Tillotson there. A very frustrating qualifying session, but a very good run in the wet as he made his way up the order. But in the end, was one of those situations whereby I think if he had a bit more time, he would have recovered even some more places and really made some great ground. And, well, we'll just have to see where his charge will come to an end. I suspect it may come to an end as a result of that, but we will let you know as soon as we can. But in the meantime, we're going to see if we can grab a word or two from any of our other drivers, because we've had 3 of them, but we're always welcome to have a word or two with a couple more. But we are just checking in once again with regards to what's happening at the moment, ladies and gentlemen. But in the meantime, we will leave you with the wonderful pictures. And in fact, we'll leave you with a bit of an onboard of Craig Tillerson's Corvette as it takes on a lap in the wet here at Road America. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have had a bit of an interesting development. There's no official confirmation yet from the admins as to what's happening, but we have just had word that the iRacing service may have just come back up, and we're just waiting to find out what's happening. We do have a number of drivers who have said that unfortunately they're not going to be able to carry on if the race is resumed, but we are just in that holding up pattern at the moment, awaiting official word. But we will let you know as soon as we can. But in the meantime, we will leave you with some more footage of our drivers. And in fact, we might grab it on board with one of our other drivers out there. I think we are going to grab it on board with what will be Starsmore in his Ferrari as he makes his way on around. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I have had an official word come through from the Evolution Sim Racing administration team. We are bringing the racing to a close there. We will not be seeing the resumption of the final 15 minutes of racing at Road America. In terms of how the results will be calculated and how points will be distributed, that is to be decided. However, we have just had the official word come through to us from the admins, which is we will not be going racing again this evening. So that brings our story of Road America to a close. Unfortunately, not the way we've wanted it to, but it does mean that it's now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for tuning in today. If you have enjoyed the racing, and perhaps you're sat there right now salivating at the prospect of wanting to be on the grid and go racing with Evolution Sim Racing across what is our GT3 Championship or any of our series. Well, of course, we do have on Thursday evenings the Trophy AI GT3 Championship, which you've been tuning into this evening. On Sunday evenings, we have rotating week on, week off, the European GT Championship and also the Danny Lee Porsche Cup, as brought to you in collaboration with Danny Lee, the famous sim racer and also real life racer, and also in collaboration with GT Omega. But if you're not looking at those, perhaps you're looking for what is a free to join series in order to dip your toes into the sim racing league world. We do have our official practice leagues on both Tuesday evenings and also on Saturdays at 4 p.m. Indeed, there's never been a better time to become part of the Evolution Sim Racing community. But what we also want to say at this moment is a huge thank you to our series and league sponsors, who do include Trophy.ai, who power the GT3 Championship, also Carme, Modern Technology, also to Virtual Racing School, i.e. VRS, GP2 Group, and also we'd like to say a big thank you to Motorsport UK's esports division for having us as a recommended community amongst their roster. Thank you to Motorsport UK for that. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it means after an unexpected twist in the tail at Road America, will we continue to remain in the United States of America, but we make our way from the US state of Wisconsin to that of Texas to do the Texas two-step at the Circuit of the Americas, also known as COTA, and around the 20-corner Grand Prix circuit, which is a mishmash of corners from around the globe. The question will be, in two absolutely succulent sprint races, who is going to score a feast of points across our Premier and Evo classes, because the conditions, they're likely to be much more stable. We're not necessarily going to see the rain, and in dry conditions once again, will we see old favourites return to the top, or will we see some of our fast flyers across our classes, including the likes of Mathew Croft in the Premier class, and also in the Evo class, the likes of Rob Gregg and also none other than Charlie Stoffard and Owen Seward all fly high. Well, for all that and more, you know what you need to do. You need to tune into round number 5 this time next week on Thursday, the 1st of May 2025, to see how the story continues in Split B, the split with our Premier and Evo drivers. But until then, we've been Evolution Sim Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, remember to stay on track. Good night.
For the upcoming right-hander, brake 30 meters later and ease off the pressure.
Are you spending a lot of time looking for setups and struggling for faster lap times? Are you tired of searching online for answers? Would you like to get setups, analysis and tutorials from some of the best sim racers in the world like Ralph Alla, Mitchell de Jong, Martin Krunker, Josh Rogers and many more? If so, virtualracingschool.com is the answer you've been looking for. VRS data packs provide hot laps from our professional coaches for you to analyse and replicate. They provide tutorials that walk you through the fastest laps and what the pros did to achieve the best times. And they provide the setups you need to ensure your car is competitive in both oval and road racing. If you're ready to get faster and reach more podiums sooner than later, just go to virtualracingschool.com and sign up for a free account today.